Hello and welcome to the Captain's Table, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Paul Berserker01 Batman Shelley, your humble host and space bartender here at the AstroPub, your space bar at the end of Twitch, your professor on the Astro Historian, and your humble host and moderator here on the Captain's Table. This is a live stream podcast that I do both on Twitch and YouTube. You can watch us live at youtube.com/TheAstroPub live and watch us on Twitch at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub. And yeah, this is going to be probably the first video the first one that will be listed on the new YouTube, which is already up there, the youtube.com/@thecaptainstable podcast. So make sure you're subscribed there. If you're watching this already there, make sure you subscribe so we grow that over there so that everyone can kind of enjoy that. So yeah, thank you for joining us here today. Today, joining me is HC Vertigo and Build and Play. And let's start with you, Build and Play. Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? And where can they find you?
Yeah, thank you. Good day, all. I am Build and Play, or Bob. I've been playing since about 2020 or 2021, and I'm mostly interested in passenger transport gameplay. I'm currently a tour guide and bartender for Qantas Starlines, which is one of the only, if not the only, active touring and passenger transport organization. And I host a lot of like tours, such as lore tours and like discovery tours, and also some like shuttle running soon throughout Pyro with that organization. You can find me on basically any social media at buildandplay_, and you can find Qantas at qantas.space, or on about every social media at Qantas Starlines.
Awesome. And then we've got I guess, are you going to be the Sultan of Salt for Stanton, the Stanton Sultan of Salt, and the Pyro Sultan of Salt? Are you going to be both?
I don't know. I figure I'm not going to be doing much in Pyro, like on Twitch, because
you just don't want to get ganked
constantly. Yeah. I remember like Asmongold was playing like one of the new PvP MMOs that came out, and he was getting constantly attacked all over the place. And he was like, I can't do this on Twitch.
Yeah.
So I'm not quite sure of the future of Pyro, though.
Who are you? What do you do in Star Citizen? Where can they find you?
I am HC Vertigo here on Twitch. I used to be a dedicated Star Citizen streamer, but then I kind of moved more variety. We've been enjoying Satisfactory recently. We've been enjoying Helldivers, enjoying Stalker 2, Heart of Chernobyl. Great game, great atmosphere vibe, but highly recommend it, especially now that they got some new patches out, fix with release. I do plan to be going back into 4.0 here a little bit, maybe Monday, because they put it out to everybody on the EPTU. It's not live, Chris. I don't care how many times you say it's live. It's not. It's if you have a choice to roll back, if the user has a choice to roll back to the previous live patch on the launcher, it's not live. I like to give him a ration of shit over that, because the letter from the chairman came out and he's like, oh yeah, we pushed 4.0 out to the
preview
this preview channel.
Yeah.
It's now live. I'm like, no, it's not. But I do appreciate they give them the option to pick or choose which version you want to play on for the holiday. Because obviously CIG, they're slowing down right now because everyone's taking their breaks. You got Christmas coming up. If you celebrate, you got New Year's coming up, and obviously this is a time of year when everybody wants to spend time with family. Even if you don't celebrate Christmas, it's time to like get together with your friends and family because everyone else is. And you got New Year's coming up as well. So you might as well like not commit too hard to 4.0. I hear a lot of people have been having problems. But anyways, you can find me on YouTube as well. I'm uploading shorts over there for like whatever shenanigans are happening. As same handle on YouTube as it is here on Twitch, HC Vertigo. You can also find me on Blue Sky, HC Vertigo on Blue Sky, Instagram as well. Just trying to make people's lives a little bit better by uploading stuff that's kind of funny, stuff you can laugh at, stuff you can enjoy.
I have to, in the new year, hold on. I have to turn on the bot. The bot is not turned on properly.
Oh, no, not the bot.
Yeah, the bot is currently turned off. We gotta entice it. We gotta tickle it a little bit to make it turned on. All right. Start. All right, there we go. There you go. Starts up. Perfect. Start invoked. Beginning. Sorry. So for those who don't know, we do have a bot that will answer questions, or not answer questions. Well, if you ask a question on either YouTube or Twitch, it will gather that question for us to answer later in what we've dubbed the After Dark section, because it can get pretty spicy in the After Dark. Less scripted, more from the pants, because some questions can get wild.
From the pants.
Yeah.
Seat of our pants.
Yes, that's why it's called, After
Assuming you
Dark.
wear pants,
Right.
I mean, you don't really have to wear pants on Twitch, especially
No.
if you're doing what Build and Play does over here.
Yeah.
Where he doesn't have his camera on.
Well, he could have his camera on. He just wouldn't know below. The joke is that nobody knows that I'm just a floating torso. No one's actually seen me in person. I'm just a floating torso.
He's actually made by Disney. He's just an animatronic.
I'm a really lifelike animatronic. All right. Speaking of 4.0, to show you how my brain was dead, I initially created this as looking forward to 2025, and then somehow I thought that we're doing a 2024 year in review. And then Build and Play reminded me, he's like, no, I signed up because you were going to say 2025, you looking forward. I was like,
Looking forward, yeah.
Right, I did say that. I'm an idiot. My brain has been so thoroughly fricasseed. So this is a looking forward to 2025. But let's get started with a bit of a recap of the year. So Vertigo, starting with you, just general vibe. Good or bad year for 2024 for Star Citizen?
Overall, I think we've made some good progress this year. Obviously, server meshing's coming out at the very end here. That's a big maypole feature that CIG's been dancing around for a very long time. We got the Polaris come out. That's the darling of Star Citizen. A lot of people have been waiting for that stupid thing for a long time. We got new character customizer, another long time feature. We've been wanting was more hairstyles, especially more Afrocentric hairstyles, piercings, tattoos, beards. People have been wanting more character customization options for a long time now. Obviously more ships. Pulse came out not long ago, and the Pulse fits into everything. And that's something that everybody wanted, just a little ground vehicle you can just putter around in. That fits in just about every ship you can imagine. Even some ships it probably shouldn't fit into.
It could fit in Aurora.
Yeah, like I said, some ships you probably shouldn't be able to fit into. It fits into. So yeah, and obviously we had some bad stuff that people complain about, like Master Mode. A lot of people don't like Master Modes. Very controversial feature. Some of the new FPS stuff that's going on, some of the web store stuff that's going on. CIG feels like they're kind of ringing us a little bit tighter this year for money. CitizenCon, obviously a lot of hype for CitizenCon, so it kind of contributes to the positive vibes. People saw looking forward from CitizenCon for this year, and plus the stuff they made for last year that actually we got this year, 2023, we got in 2024, and then people are seeing the 2024 stuff and they're looking forward to 2025. Base building, crafting. So there's definitely a lot of hype. There's a lot of hope there. We've moved the needle. I think a lot of the saltiness comes from people just kind of being sour, just being soaking in that brine for too long, right? It just kind of makes you extra super pickled, right? You're just too much. Some people just been with the project for too long, and that's kind of why I've been going to variety stuff, because there's so much other stuff out there to enjoy. No Man's Sky is getting more free expansions. New games are coming out. Helldivers 2, enjoyed that thing this year. Great game. Satisfactory, great game, got released this year. Plenty of new releases to look forward to. Project Wingman got a DLC out of goddamn nowhere. One of my favorite one of my favorite games that released 4 years ago got a DLC, and I realized, someone tweeted about it on Blue Sky. Can you even call it a tweet on Blue Sky?
They're called Skeets.
Skeets. Someone posted about it on Blue Sky. And I'm like, I did a double take. I'm like, just what?
What? Yeah,
Project Wingman got a DLC 4 years later, and I suddenly find out about it. And the soundtrack is still on fire. Not Pedro, who did it? It's Jose Pavley.
Of course,
he did a great job.
Yeah, Jose Pavley.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I know a couple of the voice actors who were in Project Wingman because they got their start with Project Wingman, and they're content creators who started voice acting. That was their first game.
I honestly, now that you say it, I believe you, because there's the voice acting in Project Wingman goes all over the place. Like
Yes.
sometimes it's just pure, just fire. It's like,
Yeah.
yes, ham it up.
Yes.
And other times it's like, that's the take they went with.
Well, it was also famously, it's also another Kickstarter game. It was a game that I kickstarted.
Kickstarter success.
Yeah, a huge success, and done because the Project Aces has been slacking very much recently. I think it was released before A7 came out. So
yeah, it was released before Ace Combat 7.
Because
everybody was like coping about it. It's like, yay, we have this we have not Ace Combat before Ace Combat gets an official release.
Yeah, because they didn't actually release an Ace Combat to computer ever. I think 7 was the first computer that
I think you're right.
They released when it came out as well. And it's important to talk about because, both Kickstarter and also lots of other things that have been going on. And I always compare a lot of Star Citizen, especially Squadron 42, with Ace Combat because they have very similar, like Wing Commander and Ace Combat have similar DNA in that they're very hyper realistic, or not hyper realistic, hyper
arcadey. They're very much an arcade.
But it's like
your ship has thousands of missiles on it.
Yeah, but you're like the emphasis is on like the crazy over the top story.
Oh yeah.
Like,
you're using the gigantic, 10-story tall railgun to shoot down this massive battleship air cruiser over like this space elevator so that you can assault the other gigantic battleship air cruiser that has all these drones that it just detaches from it and shoots lasers at you, and it's just like what the hell is happening here? And this soundtrack is amazing.
It's on fire. You're an ex-criminal turned good guy who accidentally killed the president. Like and then you can sometimes strap a railgun to your F-35, and go kill things.
And then the DLC has this underwater aircraft carrier that could like shoot nukes with railguns, and your objective is to like shoot a missile into like the hangar of the battleship aircraft submarine carrier thing to sink it. And the voice acting in that DLC was amazing.
So,
like the main bad guy was just hamming it up, and I loved it.
We're way off topic, but this is on par for an HG Vertigo Captain's Table. So
yes, we are so far off topic.
Build and play
things I love, not Star Citizen right now.
Build and play. Your thoughts on the year 2024? Just general vibes. Was it good, bad?
I mean, first of all, I think that the year was kind of not great. If you look at the funding, of course, it's lower than last year. The amount
they
of
still
new players,
made $100 million. That's
I mean,
still
true,
pretty good, right?
Of course, but it's still lower, and especially the amount of newer accounts compared to last year. Last year we saw spikes from like the Asmongold video, for example, that got like 40,000 new accounts in like a single day, and now it's been this year that kind of stuff hasn't really happened. However, I feel like the year was actually pretty good progress-wise. We saw a lot of new, like, good features, a lot of really good reworks, like the Moby Glass, like the Star Map, Arena Commander becoming something that's actually fun. And before, I really didn't enjoy Arena Commander, and now I just notice that I sometimes just play Arena Commander for fun. Yeah. I just play Gun Rush because it's actually fun. The weapons rework is great. And of course, server meshing and how they did the entire tech preview testing, in my opinion, was really a great experience because I loved joining every single test session, even though it was at crazy late times at night for me. It was, really cool to actually feel like you were helping the development by testing stuff. However, I do also understand why, for a lot of people, it's been a bit of a salty year, especially because like every single patch that released, it feels like every patch release was not like a 3.18, but it wasn't great. Every patch has been pretty. There have been quite a bit of issues with like almost every patch release this year. There haven't been that many ships until the end of the year, so like the year felt a bit content dry before the end, really. Also because there were just 2 patches in the entire year, really. Because, as Vertigo said, 4.0 isn't live, Chris. It's not live. This doesn't count. It's just been 23 and 24 this year. So only 2 patches.
Like I appreciate the choice between the 2 live versions, but like they go around and like, oh yeah, it's live. Like, no, it's not.
No, and
it's
right
still
now
a preview channel.
It's live
Actually
in the,
unplayable.
I think it's live. I'd argue that it's live in the two reasons why it's important that it's in live, which is one, progression will continue on from 4.0.
Yeah, no
preview.
wipes.
There's no wipes.
So whatever progress you make in 4.0, you're gonna keep when 4.0 finally is the only patch you can play.
Yeah, and the other thing is that it's on the live servers, because they weren't going to get the concurrency in the PTU that they needed to for 4.0, because they wouldn't find out what's broken. And they've already found out what's broken because of the concurrency in 4.0 preview. So they needed that concurrency testing so that they could get that information so they could fix it. It's just problematic because if they got that concurrency the day of their last day of like the day before their last day at work. So it's like, yeah, it's gonna be a while.
Yeah.
But
Today,
the question I think that a lot of players will also say is like, can I, if I make reputation money in 4.0 preview, can I will continue in 4.0? And people will say yes. Then most people are saying that it's live. Like, I think that's, people are pretty simple with that sort of thing. But yeah, I get it. So, but overall, you said overall it's just more like it's kind of like a year for you.
yeah, I would say it's. I mean, I'm personally quite happy with, if I compare to the start of this year, especially to the last few years. I feel like there's just a lot of good progress, and I love Pyro, and server meshing with the amount of players is great and working pretty well. So in general, I'm pretty happy, but I do understand why a lot of the community isn't as happy. Of course, master modes as well. I forgot to mention there has been a lot of controversy and stuff around that, especially from the PvP community. But me personally, that doesn't affect me too much because I'm not that much of a PvP focused player. I do keep it in mind, but it's not my focus. So I'm not too pissed about it.
I'm gonna go on with some rare salt, and I think this year was a bad year for the game. I think it was a good year in terms of development, bad year for the game. Good year because they got a lot of stuff they needed to get in technically. They got the new character creator in. They got the new hairstyles. They got the new HUD overlays completely finished. The new star map. They got the master modes. Setting that broken bone or whatever. Just ripping that band-aid off. They got the cargo stuff in. The cargo is my play loop, and they it's good. It's good. I like it. Please, more of this, please. And there's a lot of gameplay that was added that wasn't specifically, that was typical. Like, instead of getting events, we got the overdrive event, and we got.
Can you remember what the overdrive event was about? I couldn't.
I
had to look it up.
It was about the story of it. It was about the Nine Tails. It was the Xenothreat. It was about Xenothreat. It was the siege.
See, he messed it up, folks. He can't even keep it straight.
I get those two mixed up all the time.
Xenothreat Ninetales.
It was a Xenothreat invasion incursion. It was the preview for the new Xenothreat that was awful.
Yeah.
So, but like that I liked Overdrive. Didn't like the new Xenothreat event, but I liked Overdrive. And I'm okay with Save Stanton, but like those two things which are important because they got them tested, and going forward, they even said that they want to kind of do that. So there's good development things, but I think the major problem, which I'm not going to harp on too much because Chris did mention it in his letter from the chairman, is basically they only released a patch and a half. They released 1.5 patches for an entire year. After a year that they released 5. But 4 of those patches were released in between September and December of last year. So like CIG has often done this, and this is the year that I think is the most egregious of CIG completely wasting all of their goodwill and their momentum going into a new year. Like they'll build up, they'll do nothing between January and May, and then it feels like they just sort of go, oh, we've got a sale, what can we do? And they just throw a bunch of stuff out there so that they can get something out before Invictus, so that they have a justification to sell the ships. And then after Invictus is done, they do nothing over summer, and then they panic because CitizenCon's going to come, and so they have to make up a bunch of things they can do for CitizenCon and for IAE and at the end of the year. And like, it feels like they're kind of just slapdashing it. I know they're not, but the perception is reality. Is the problem is that what someone thinks is going on is what they will act on as what's going on. So when it comes to like, especially with video games, so like that's what the image they're giving to the world. I know it's more. They're building a lot of stuff in the back end. There's a lot of other things that are going on. Squad 42 is still the focus, but it doesn't matter because what the players see is burned like half a patch that was supposed to come out in May being split into 2 and then one coming out in May. And then they said, don't worry, it's only be a couple of weeks. And then the second half of that patch didn't come out for 3 months.
3 months.
So
I'm fine with that sort of thing. Hell, I'd say like CIG, give us like 2 patches.
If it's
like,
big,
if we could, if you can actually like guarantee like there's stuff that's going to be in there, but
go for it. But I mean, the thing is that what they're doing in the next year, and this can kind of lead into the next year a little bit, with the letter for the chairman, is they're no longer coupling features to patches, which is what they needed to stop doing a while ago. Like 4.0 is bad because they said 4.0 had to have server meshing and pyro.
They it's so frustrating to watch this, not just as like a content creator, as a fan, as someone who's followed Star Citizen for a very long time, because it feels like they've lost like their indigenous like shaman, like that oral history that gets passed down. Hey, remember 3.0 where 3.0 was like planets?
Mm-hmm.
And they had like you had 2.6.3, 2.6, which came at the start of like 2017.
Yeah,
and then you had no other major patches until like 3.0 at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the kind of thing the CIG was having problems with. Like 3.18 did the same thing. I can't remember what 3.18 was about.
It was originally
had a major.
It was the back end refactor. So like everything
back end
was
refactor. Big. It was like what was it? What do they call that? Q server or something.
Oh, P-cache versus Q-cache. Or
Q-cache, P-cache, whatever that was. That was kind of the big
I-cache versus P-cache. Yeah, it went from I-cache.
But you're going to have
P-cache.
that. You're going to have like where you end up painting yourself into a corner with a big feature where suddenly you have this big feature you're working on and it matures enough in development that suddenly you need to change everybody over to this new feature. So all your workflow has to take this feature into account because it's coming soon. And guess what? Because all your new stuff, all your devs are working on this new feature. Everybody's working around this new feature. All your old stuff is legacy, right? You can't support any of that old stuff anymore. So now, what do you do with the old patches, right? What do you do with that? You just got everybody let it sit and spin, right? Until the new feature gets mature enough that you give it to the people. And Star Citizen is not the only company that suffers from that, where you have this legacy feature that is like the linchpin, the cornerstone of whatever you're doing, and you need to get rid of it somehow. So you have to basically do a complete rewrite. And while you're doing that rewrite to support this new feature, like you can't put out any new patches. You could do kind of like hot fixes and whatnot, but any new features that have to be pushed out, you got to wait for the new feature. So that's 3.18, 3.0, 4.0. It's going to happen. But now that server meshing's like finished, I'm assuming CIG, this is what I was looking forward to for 4.0. We can kind of look forward a little bit to the actual topic we're talking about here, is that now that 4.0 server meshing, the big maypole feature that we've been promised all this time, is kind of complete. CIG, there's really nothing big left for CIG, right?
I'm gonna preempt you because there's going to be this thing that people will say, but what about dynamic server meshing or the backend servers or the backend?
Yeah, we don't know how big dynamic server meshing is, and dynamic server meshing is just the juggling, right, of servers.
It's not how it does not change fundamentally how the game talks to itself. How servers like DGSs talk with the shard or the backend. All the dynamic,
how it talks with P-cache, Q-cache, the big old server,
the hybrid service,
persistence,
that they have in the background, the replication layers. It doesn't change that. That's all in static meshing, and then all that dynamic meshing is doing is changing where the servers are located specifically, and then also how many servers can be per shard. Those are the. It's
really just a communication problem at that point, trying to get the right service to talk to the right server.
It's optimization.
At the right time.
What you're just seeing is
layering servers as well.
Yeah, it's
like on top of each other.
It's optimizations. It's not really a like a complete fundamental thing of like how things function. And even the back end, like the dynamic economy stuff that they want to do, that's already in the game. it works for fuel and repair. It runs off of the star sim.
There's just not enough systems to really make you notice it. They have to kind of keep everything kind of subdued.
Yeah,
so you can actually play the game.
And eventually, when it comes in and gets tied into the mission system, it will be a big deal. But it's not changing how missions function. Yeah. It's not like something that's so big that, like, technically speaking, nothing can be done until that's done. They can still build missions and they can still do all the content and features that with the game. So as a result, this is like the last big hurdle for CIG before they can start to take what they have in terms of the foundation and make it something that they want to make it as with 1.0. So
I think scalability might still be an issue, though, if we look in longer term and they will have like thousands of players on one shard. I mean, we're not sure yet how the scalability is going to work, because
every MMO every MMO ever existed has always had a problem with that.
Yeah,
scalability.
Exactly,
How many players can you shove in there next to each other? MMOs that have like text-based prompts and whatnot. I don't know many of MMOs that are just pure text-based. They can get away with more. EVE Online has the ability to throttle their simulation rate.
Yeah,
they can basically they slow the game down to account for all the latency issues you get with like thousands of players like in the same area. So a cooldown that takes 30 seconds to refresh when you get 1,000 people's may take 5 minutes to refresh real time.
Yeah.
For you sitting at your computer. So you may end up getting, you click a button, you get up, make yourself a cup of coffee, come back, and you're still waiting on your cooldowns after you made that cup of coffee. And so you go browse Reddit, listen to a few podcasts, and occasionally you're clicking on buttons. It becomes more like Farmville than actual EVE Online, but we can't do that in Star Citizen. So obviously, if Chris Roberts wants to have real-time interactions that are meaningful, they're going to have some serious problems with bandwidth and latency.
Yep, which is the reason why there's going to be a lot of discussions. We'll talk about that here in a moment. But I will say overall this year was good for technology, bad for perception of Star Citizen's current state, even for the team. I think going forward, and I'll start off with this one pretty easily. Going forward, the big thing I think that CIG can do to improve their reputation, and also what Chris Roberts has basically said, is hit a cadence. March comes out, there is a patch out, and there is stuff to do in that patch. Oh, but what about, scanning didn't make it for, or engineering didn't make it for 4.1. Cool. We don't need to worry about it. It'll come in 4.1.1 or maybe 4.2. Who cares? We'll just keep testing it and make sure it works. Let's not lock anything behind this big wall. Bounty hunting 2.0 comes out, or it comes out when it comes out. They need other things to get forward or whatever. So having missions, having ships, having the things they can get out when they can get out, pushing it out there and not worrying about attaching a feature to a specific release other than, say, 1.0, that will improve their reputation. Because if you can keep up the momentum of new patch releases with content and give a reason for people to sign in, if you give a reason people to sign in and play, that means you're going to make more money. And it'll also make people less salty because there's always something for people to do. Save Stanton barely works sometimes, but there are still people who hadn't played Star Citizen in 6 months who came back because Save Stanton gave them guns.
Yeah, gave them something.
Yeah, something.
And I think that's a good idea. It's like you give some, other than like a Spectrum badge or something. You give in-game rewards, even if it's just like a reskin, like a different geometry reskin of like something that already exists in Star Citizen. It's this gun, but it's a different color. That's fine. People
were like no-lifed Xenothreat when you could get the Xenothreat armor. People were just like, not Xenothreat armor, the CDF armor.
CDF, yeah.
I did that too. I did it for both my accounts.
Same here, yeah.
like you just
though the CDF armor was kind of disappointing, but that's another thing entirely.
It's kind of ugly, but
well, it looks almost exactly like stuff you can get in the game.
It's just with a little patch on it. That's all it is.
It has a little badge on the armor chest piece. That's it.
It needs to be that should have been the full chest piece, CDF logo, and I think people would have been a little bit more because it's more like, hey, I'm CDF, But so it's mostly the cadence. It's because cadence, in my opinion, didn't hit the cadence. But they're already in the right direction where they already said, we understand the cadence is wrong. We need to start improving our cadence and not start tying these features and stuff like that. So Initial responses. I'll start with you, Bill, since I started with Vertigo last time. Your thoughts on the immediate future of Star Citizen in, say, January through March, between the current release of 4.0 and whatever release comes out in March. What is the future looking? Bright, bad? What do you see coming out in that time?
I feel like the next few months will be pretty good, especially since the game is probably going to get a bit more stable. 4.0 will actually go to live. Hopefully we'll get there are already some new missions, of course. You have the missions that are kind of like Citizens of Prosperity against headhunters, which are actually kind of fun to engage in already if they function. And other missions as well, like the location repair that's not yet in the game. They still have it on tentative for 4.0, so we'll see. So I feel like those months will be pretty good. I think 4.1 is also going to be somewhat big again. Maybe even some parts that they left out of 4.0 they will bring back in. Maybe they will bring the Valakar into Arena Commander or the game itself. So yeah, I think the next few months are going to be good, especially since so many people will be coming back. I feel like the next few weeks, though, until CIG gets back into office, will be somewhat rough.
Vertigo, your same thoughts between January and March, post break when they come back. What's it like?
They do their planning stuff from January for the first couple of months, so I'm not expecting a lot of major stuff going on. Maybe they'll add some new stability and that kind of stuff. That's what I'm kind of hoping for. Now we're just going to kind of knuckle down and make Star Citizen better, more stable. We don't have to worry about these gigantic features upsetting development anymore. Our developer branches are not going to be vastly experimental in what technologies they have to support.
You're saying R, and I'm going to clarify this because this always confuses people on YouTube. Vertigo doesn't work for CIG. He's using this in terms of like community wise. He's using it in terms of the community being part of the process of development.
We are part of the development. We fund development and we give feedback on development.
Yeah. So
we participate, whether you like it or not. We do more participate. The community does more participation for Star Citizen development than any other community does.
Yeah.
Usually like Battlefield, you only get it to like it's in beta or something, and then you give feedback, and then it gets pushed out for like $60. We're paying money right now.
Very few MMOs do what Star Citizen's doing in terms of how much the community is involved in it. It's usually more like a couple of beta tests here and there before live, not like please tell us exactly what we need to do to fix our problems. So, but yeah, anything else? Sorry to interrupt you. Make sure.
Anything else? So for like the next
3 months,
first quarter of 2026, I'm not or 2025, I should say, first quarter 2025. I'm not expecting a lot. I'm expecting like bug fixes, some patches to fix up some stuff, maybe some new ships. Nothing really major. Maybe another big event. Global mission chain for CIG to like theme the patch around, kind of similar to Xenothreat, Project Overdrive, Siege of Orison. So, I'm hoping for that kind of stuff. Really, I can't imagine what big piece of technology CIG could put in there. Definitely not 1.0 next year for the first 3 months or the entire year. 1.0 is not the next patch, people. If you think 1.0 is the next patch, you don't know.
My call. I'm going to call this right now. I'm going to make a bold prediction. I've been making bold predictions the last couple of episodes. I'm making another bold prediction. Bold prediction is I think CIG is going to run Siege of Orison for next year in like between now and 4.1.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be a test of how to do dedicated, how they can create a dedicated event server.
Right, those battle instances.
Yeah.
You can have like a shard by itself that just hosts an event.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's sort of like an instanced event. I wouldn't be surprised if they do some sort of testing of doing a dedicated, some version of that, because they
were threatening to do that for CitizenCon this year, where they said they were going to have like those dark zones under Area 18 where you go down. You're going to just be by yourself with like a group of people.
Yeah.
They already have the technology sitting around to do that right now with the persistence hangar.
The hangars are instanced, so all they have to do is take that technology and apply it to a game server. So I think, and I think that
during
good.
Sorry, during the 1.0 visuals, they also showed the that they wanted to do fleet instance fleet battles.
In
So
Nyx, yeah.
yeah,
So
that wouldn't surprise me either to be somewhat soon-ish testing at least.
So I think they just take one of their events and they run it with an instance DGS on a shard where like only a certain number of people can get in and that's it, and so they can run it. And I know Elliot has been chomping at the bit to get his baby with a dedicated server, which is for those of you who don't know, Elliot Maltby literally built Siege of Orison. That was his mission. So the reason why it's broken is because he built it. To harp on him a little bit more, but no, he's always, but he's been saying that he's really wanting to see the server meshing technology.
I mean, I could see it. I could see them adding a jump point to a Xenothreat instance in Stanton. You go to this place, this unstable jump point opens up, and it takes you to like fight Xenothreat Idris.
Yeah, something like that. I could definitely see something like that.
But you have to have like, a pass key in your inventory or something to open up the jump. Only people with pass keys in their inventory can actually use the jump.
Or you have to loot the jump module from the Xenothreat contested zones.
Yes. Yeah. Some sort of, you have to find some
server
sort
blades.
of means. Yeah. So you have to find some sort of key or some sort of things. Like I can see with like say Siege of Orison, I could see them being like you get an invite and you have to like go collect your gear or your some sort of module that you can bring with you, and then once you do that, you get moved into an instance where you can go fight and then come back out of that instance and sort of.
And you know what, Paul? Like we're talking about this. This isn't like something I'm theory crafting like will happen within the next 5 years. This is something I feel in my. This is something I feel in my heart that could happen literally within the next year. Like the technology, everything we're talking about literally exists in the game right now.
Not only does it literally exist in the game right now, but 4.0 literally has some of these aspects, like keys that unlock special content. That's the contested zones. It's literally how it works. So, yeah, I think that's probably the next step. Is this next year is going to be a year of experimentation, and not just experimentation, but I think experimentation and growth for the teams that currently exist at CIG. Mission teams are going to get a lot more stuff done. The content teams are going to get a lot more stuff done. We're going to start seeing a lot more gameplay features to be played with. Probably a lot of stuff on master modes is going to be iterated on. I pray and hope that Arena Commander gets its team back, because up till now, the Arena Commander team this year was basically put onto other topics like other games, other parts of the game. Yeah. So I really hope they get it back.
42.
Yes, Star Citizen stuff. They were helping out with 4.0 stuff. So if they can get pushed back to Arena Commander and do some more Arena Commander stuff, I think that Arena Commander is going to be one of those big things going forward in 2025 and beyond. That's really going to make the game more appealing, because
I am torn on Arena Commander going forward, and I used to enjoy Arena Commander a lot back in the day, but it's been, I swear to God, only 20 people play Arena.
That's what I mean.
At that point, you just need to shut it off. Like, it's pointless. More people play the persistent. It's Concord levels of players. Like, Concord was shut down with like 100 congruent players.
But the thing is that if they allow, that's because it's not finished yet. It's not been allowed to get unique features. Like, if you could have more instance combat where you could have control over who you're fighting with, and like, I know I'd play it a lot more if I had co-op PvE horde
mode would be great. Like, just take one of the pyro contested zones, what do they call them right now, one of the dark zones in pyro, and just make that its own little horde mode shooter that you go through. You can basically practice doing one of those runs.
Practice one of those runs. You can take any of the events that like Siege of Orison and put it into Arena Commander and let players play or Siege of Orison at any time. Those kind of things would be nice. So yeah.
And please, Theaters of War, CIG.
You already have Theaters of War. It's in Pyro.
Right, okay, but
Pyro is your Theaters of War.
So
it's not the same.
We don't. Okay, here's another thing I have a problem with, like Arena Commander. We don't need more distractions for the player base. Like, Battlefield had this problem back when they were releasing a bunch of X packs for paid money. Battlefield 4, I think it was Battlefield 4. Battlefield 3 and 4 suffered from a problem. They would release an expansion that would have a whole bunch of new guns and map packs in it. and the only way to have the map was to buy the expansion. And if you had a community you played with, you'd inevitably have some people who didn't buy the expansion that would be up next on the rotation for the server. And so you just you'd have like a third of your parties, a third of your server just quit because they couldn't load that map. And everybody be complaining about that shit. And I have that problem with Star Citizen is like you're spreading yourself really thin with like Theaters of War. You're trying to replicate what you should be trying to encourage within the persistent universe.
That is true.
Right?
That's true.
With Theaters of War. Like you should be like whatever's happening with Theaters of War, that should be either like you should get rid of like Star Marine and then replace that with Theaters of War because Star Marine's kind of pointless and get like a horde mode there instead.
Well, they're getting rid of everything. It's all Arena Commander now. And I do think that the end goal of Arena Commander should be a free-to-play mode. It should be a free-to-play version of Star Citizen that you can enjoy or...
year-round free-to-play mode. You just sign up for an account, you can download Star Citizen, you can do free-to-play stuff.
And you play Arena Commander, and you can learn how to do those things. The only problem is that since Arena Commander is just Star Citizen, people would inevitably be able to make a lot of hacks for Star Citizen by just using Arena Commander.
Is that a bad thing, really? Like, keep all the hacks contained to Arena Commander?
Well, because then they can
reports about that, and then CIG can try to fix that shit. Well, you're going to have hacks regardless of Arena Commander being free to play or not.
Night City.
So, but like
also Vertigo. I fully agree with you on the Theaters of War thing, especially with the vision they have for the planetary shields for the outposts and Pyro and Nyx and other unlawful systems. That is largely very similar to what Theaters of War was during the showcase, where you have to capture the space station and then go down to the ground and do an assault with vehicles. So I fully agree. If CIG actually manages to implement that and decides to focus on implementing that instead of making Theaters of War, I fully agree. They should focus on the game.
I do think that the advantage of it, and long term, this is also another thing that I think would be good, is having custom game modes. Maybe lock that behind an account you have to pay for, but if you can do custom game modes in Arena Commander to allow people to develop their own mission ops so that they can kind of like...
I have to disagree with you, Paul. I think we're moving too far away about what the core of Star Citizen should be focused on, which is the...
No, I get it. I understand that. But I also think that there's so much, especially as they add things like Death of a Spaceman, that's going to add so much more danger to playing anything that a lot of people are going to want to have a place where they can practice without having the consequences of death mattering. I'm not talking about like custom game modes as being something that's like tomorrow, more of a long-term thing. But I do hope that we do end up next year start to see more refocus of some of that team that was hired specifically to make Arena Commander, from Firesprite. I want them to be able to do the thing they were hired to do. So, because
assuming they still work there, considering all the rumors of layoffs.
That's true.
Oh yeah, that's another thing we can look forward to. More layoffs from CIG.
That is almost certain.
Next year.
That is almost certain. We're going to see a large number of layoffs, but that's also just the nature of video games these days. I don't think there's a single studio, even good studios, that haven't laid off a number of people. So, all right. So let's go a little bit further than that. The next 6 months. So, quarter two. Between
that's going to be the Invictus patch.
Yeah. So so Vertigo, what do you think is going to be? What kind of thing are we going to get between now and then for like the Invictus?
I think around that time we probably see a lot more progress on the Perseus, because I think that's in white box right now, rumored to be in production. Definitely like another large ship, capital ship, been accepted before. Obviously more ships, more combat ships for the concept, either flight ready concept. I really don't think we're going to see another star system. We're not going to see another star system pushed to live, because they did the 5 right for CitizenCon this year, which was Caster,
Nyx, Terra.
Caster and Nyx, Pyro, Stan, and can't remember the 5th one. Terra, I think it was. Was it Terra?
Yeah.
Terra's not going to be. Terra's going to be one of the last systems they're going to work on.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Or if Chris Roberts does a massive line of coke, it'll be the first one they decide to work on.
Well, we already know the list.
Terra's going to be about as complicated as a Stan, quite honestly.
Just
Terra is more complicated.
Just Terra the planet is more complicated than the entirety of Stanton. There are like,
and don't forget, there's 2 habitable planets there with multiple cities on both.
Yeah.
So if CIG wants to play it safe, like let's just get Castor and Nyx out of the way, right? After Pyro. That way we can get more stuff. Because they could just hit procedural generation on the moons and planets, because that was something they showed off at CitizenCon with like their the new
Genesis
architect and stuff.
Yes.
Genesis system. Yeah. But the problem with that is that you look at the CitizenCon footage and you see a lot of terrestrial Earth style plants and environments, which leads me to think that maybe they are getting ready for Terra, because Terra being terraformed
I think
Earth standards with Earth plants.
Well, it's
biology.
It's naturally habitable. It wasn't terraformed, but like it should look like Earth because it was naturally habitable. It's the whole narrative of this game.
But they had a lot of Earth style plants showed off.
Yeah, that's because they want to make I think they want to ground people in what they know. Yeah. So
don't get too crazy.
Yeah,
with those orange trees and red leaves.
Yes. None of this. You live in the northeast sort of.
Heaven forbid it's a sci-fi game, Chris Roberts, with like aliens in it, which also we're not going to see next year. We're not going to see any Banu. We're not going to see any Jean. We're not going to see any maybe they'll squeak in.
We might see Vandal.
Some Vandal because they'll be ready for Squadron. We may see some. We may have to fight a small Vandal raiding party in like Pyro. But doesn't Pyro share a border with Vandal space?
No, it shares a border with Nyx, which has a border with Vandal space.
Okay, so if they get Nyx in, they can have some Vandal stuff. There's a good reason to get Nyx.
Yeah.
You get small Vandal raids occasionally. That'll give you like some cool instance.
Yeah.
Elliot could probably do something with that for like an event. He'd probably enjoy like throwing some Vandal at us.
It'd be cool to fight like a small Vandal raid with like a destroyer or like a cruiser or something like that. Some small capital ship combat with them, because they should be ready and polished.
You could unlock like a Vandal ship out of the raid. Like you get Vandal crash on the surface of a planet. It's like, oh, here's a scythe. And you can fly it.
Build and play. What do you think between quarter one, like the March and Invictus patch, the quarter one patch and Invictus overall? What do you think? What do you expect for us to see next year?
I feel like, especially in general next year, CIG is still going to be focusing a lot on engine-related stuff because Squadron, obviously. So I definitely expect that we'll be seeing some of like the dynamic weather. It wouldn't surprise me at all if in 4.2 we already see a first implementation of that, because we already have the moving clouds in game right now. And in EP2 that you have people making these time lapses of all the clouds moving on all the Pyro planets. So it wouldn't surprise me if we see a lot of that weather stuff. Also a lot of the tech, the GPU terrain, moving terrain to GPU. Maybe even some first work on global illumination, but I don't think that's going to be the next 6 months. So yeah, especially some of that work. I also expect a lot of, as Chris said in the Dead of the Chairman as well, I expect a lot of work on reputation-based systems. I think CIG wants to finally start diving into that. Reputation V2, basically. I don't really expect anything.
Now we have Pyro and Stan, we can have like more drastic reputation locks. Like if you really mess up, you can't go to Stanton anymore without getting hassled by the cops. So you're basically going to be living in Pyro if you're really bad.
I'm going to go off and say I really hope that they can make. So one of the things that I think would be cool would be big go all or nothing sort of missions in the criminal missions in Stanton, where like you could make a lot of money. Like,
Ocean's 11.
Yeah,
what you're kind of thinking.
Yeah, kind of like a big heist missions, but like you are going to have level 5 crime stat instantly.
You're basically talking about criminal raids.
Yeah,
I would love to see something like that. You get level 5. Well, you're not gonna. The crime stat system's like is something they wanted to move away from anyways, and they kind of did a little bit.
But like
recently,
super negative reputation to the point where you won't be able to land, or like you'll be pursued constantly by. You're
gonna have to like get fake credentials and whatnot,
and stuff that
I would love to see something like
something like that where it's like a big risk, big reward. Because I'm also a big fan of Payday before they ruined the Payday franchise. But that concept of like executing on a well organized plan and having to do, they already have some of that stuff with like what is that? the security post Korea raid
Mhm.
sort of thing. But it's kind of, it's not really, the juice isn't worth the squeeze with that. So I'd love to see it kind of expand.
I complain about that constantly. Like I very rarely go to security post Karaya for like any. The problem is like when you want to PvP, you don't want like NPCs getting in your way. You don't want automated defense turrets. You just want to you want to go fight players. And when you show up to security post Karaya as a bad guy or a good guy, you're inevitably going to get mixed up with like the NPC stuff. And
There are
especially
like
with like
800 of them.
yeah, and the NPCs usually give the good guys, the bounty hunters, air quotes, bounty hunters, the good guys,
Mhm.
the people who are trying to stop you from hacking your crime site. Usually the security gives you more help on your side, so it's kind of like unbalanced. It's not like a game of Battlefield where it's like two teams versus each other, and you both have all the same options. It's just how you play the game. Like security post Karaya gives like one side a massive advantage, so there's really no reason for you to engage in that as a person who's interested in PvP.
Mhm.
And as someone who likes doing bounty hunting, when you see that mission pop up for Security Post Korea, the what is it? Stop the Raiders at Security
Yeah.
Post Korea. I can't remember because I hardly ever take it anymore. Every time it pops up, you go there and you don't know who's on your side. The fog of war is very real. So you shoot the wrong person, you get crime stat,
Yeah.
and now you're the criminal that needs to be eliminated as a result. And that's just fuck that.
Yeah.
It's just like no, I'm not
I
gonna do
hate
that.
I hate the current crime system. I think it's an awful way. It needs
Yeah.
to be changed up. But that's an example of something that I'd hope they do in the next
Yeah.
6 months or so. Was there anything else you wanted to say, Bob?
I would say I still expect them also to just, together with reputation, economy is very important, that they have been focusing on that right now a lot. So I'm expecting them to do a lot of economy stuff, keep balancing that. I don't know how much we'll actually notice from that as players. Maybe here and there they'll accidentally mess up some zeros again and fuel will become 8 million again. But other than that, I don't think that's too noticeable. And also about the it would be really cool to see with Pyro, if you have a group of like people who have good reputation with Xenothreat, they can actually cause a sort of Xenothreat global event to happen on the shard. If all of them do such a raid as you guys were talking about, that would be really cool to see.
Yeah.
But no clue if that's something CIG is considering. Finally, please, the social mobiGlas app and player organization stuff. I really hope we get that, but I
In the
kind
first
of
6
doubt
months?
that's within the next. Yeah, probably not.
Okay.
Especially
Yeah.
since it was all concept art. But
Well, I also imagine it's not as complicated to implement that stuff because it's mostly back-end features. There's not a lot of. It's a graphical interface. It's a graphical interface with back-end
Yeah, but this
stuff.
is Star Citizen we're talking about. They have trouble introducing UI.
Well,
yep.
every so often, CIG will do something much faster than we all thought they would.
Oh
do.
yeah, I'm more than
So,
willing. CIG proved me wrong.
Yeah.
You know,
So
you get that orgs level stuff in there because we kind of need it now. We have like ships that require
yeah,
like multiple people to operate properly, like the Polaris. Like you need a crew of people, and now 1.0 is not even going to have NPC crew, and I know 1.0 is not coming out now.
no.
Like they're gonna piecemeal 1.0 out. Like they're gonna take features out of 1.0 and like, okay, now it's 4.2. We're gonna use this out of
Yeah.
out of 1.0. This feature's in 4.2 now. We're checking that off the box.
Yeah.
That's probably what's gonna happen. They're just gonna grab stuff out of 1.0 on the 1.0 is always gonna be on the end of the roadmap.
Yeah.
And they're just gonna grab
Yeah, of
stuff out of
course.
1.0 and move it into the patch that's coming up next when it's ready to go.
Of course.
Okay.
And NPCs aren't coming for 1.0, so I know
You know that.
NPCs for your ships aren't coming this year, next year.
Don't rub it in. Bob is very angry about that.
I know.
What? No. I
That's
actually
your
like it.
that's your whole thing is moving NPCs, isn't it?
Yeah, but he's saying NPCs like as crew,
Oh, for your
passenger
NPC
transport.
crews.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
And that
I don't even
passenger
think we'll have.
transport.
Maybe we could have passenger transports before crew NPCs because it's just getting the guys to walk onto the ships and sit down and then walk off the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we'll
like
see.
2 years ago, they already put some of the code in that's still
Yeah.
in there for the
And
mission.
that was we actually had NPC pilots showed off at CitizenCon 2952 with that Microtech mission with the Carrack.
That was
You got
that
into
was,
a Valkyrie that
that
took
was
you to a
2019.
That
Yeah.
was?
That was 2019.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
That's really long ago.
Yeah, that was 2019.
Also,
But-
NPCs walk onto like the Valkyrie, the Cutlass, and all that stuff. Especially now with
They
them
do.
working, they keep walking onto the ships.
What do you mean? The NPCs? We mean the Kazi Grazer keeps walking onto people's ships and just
Have you
being like,
seen-
I hear that.
Have you seen the one where they abducted one into an 890 jump? And
Yes,
he was
and
running
it
through
went
the...
crazy and started
yes.
killing
I've seen
people.
that one.
Yeah. So I think in the first 6 months we're going to get Nyx. I don't know if
Nyx
it'll
in
be
the next 6 months.
Yes, I think I don't know if it will actually happen, but I think that they're going to shoot for it. I think that may be one of those things where they put it in Evocati and they test Nyx with the patch, and then they go, not quite ready yet. We need to work out some other few things. Then it'll end up in an EPTU and come out in like 2 months or 3 months after after it'll come out in a 4.1 point.
Honestly, I could see Nyx.
patch.
I don't think it's going to come out next, but I could see them maybe doing Nyx as just like an empty system with just like mineable.
Yeah.
And maybe not having Delamar because it's not quite ready yet. And then they put that in the PTU and it's like, hey, the only thing to do in Nyx is like mine stuff. You better bring a Starfarer.
Yeah. Well, I do think that Nyx is going to be generally less. It's smaller than Pyro, bigger than Stanton, but most things are bigger than Stanton. And it's also mostly empty. There's only 2 factions. There's only 2 major factions. Technically, there'll be more, like the Citizens for Prosperity will be there, and there'll be a few other factions in there that we already have. Like, I'm sure we'll see.
Yeah, they're largely implemented.
Yeah.
But see, they can always change the lore. They can always rewrite stuff.
They did They did with
They did it for
Pyro.
They did it
Pyro.
with
Yeah.
But I don't see them doing it because the reason why they did it for Pyro was more to like match the narrative, and also because it was the second system they were adding to the game. With Nyx, it's always been Nyx is literally the goddess of sleep, of night. So it's mostly just a nebula. And I do believe that the main feature of Nyx is going to be scanning, where like the system itself is hostile to you being able to scan through it because the nebula is supposed to break up signals. So that's what they want to try to test. Kind of like how the main feature of Pyro was supposed to be the solar flare. And that's why engineering was introduced with that, because it was supposed to interact with engineering so that players would have to have an engaging like environmental concept, not just all players would have to deal with it, not just players who are dealing with combat. They'd have to deal with the solar flare, then having to repair their ships and moving forward and that kind of thing. And I think that's really what Nyx is about. Its main focus is scanning and stealth, and how you deal with scanning and stealth, no matter if you're combat or not.
I personally, with Nyx, it's like, I don't think it's going to be next 6 months. I think
Yeah.
it's more likely that CIG will put it around SitCon maybe, because what else are they going to do for SitCon? Another Squadron one, because it's going to release the year after. I mean, it's going to be a big part of it, but it wouldn't surprise me at all if that's part of it. I also think it's going to be soon, because Nyx, I mean, back in 2021, 2022, I believe they had some, on like SCL and stuff, they showed the concept arts and some final art plans and flora and fauna basically for Nyx that we haven't seen in Pyro. I've looked at basically all the planets at this point, and I haven't seen those assets.
Yeah, they were built specifically for
and-
Nyx. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And Delamar and Levski, of course. I believe that they are pretty far with that, because a while ago as well, when they added the hospitals and stuff, they also
added
quickly
the
showed
hospital. Yeah.
that they added the hospital there, and then during SitCon they showed the external hangars, the internal hangars,
Yeah.
I don't think Nyx is far off. I genuinely believe that it's going to be before 4.5, 4.6.
Yeah.
So like
Next year.
hopefully next year.
Yeah.
But I don't expect it in the next 6 months. I mean, I'm thinking SitCon, maybe even end of year release comparable to Pyro. But
Yeah, I think we may get into like preview in the next 6 months.
yeah,
And
okay.
yeah, I want to hope that we'll see Nyx next in Q2. In terms of like playability, maybe something like we have now, where you have like a 4.2 4.1 preview and a 4.1, where like you can play on either one, but 4.1 preview has
But then
Nyx.
Pyro gets delayed so far that we have that we have 2 previews, so we have 3
Oh, yeah.
consecutive live.
How many
I don't see it
patches do we
happening.
need, right? How many PT
Yeah,
patches?
patches do we need? I kind of like that new system that they're talking about though, because it just kind of cuts a lot of the like, hey, we'll deal with this later for people to play if they want to play with it because it's broken and doesn't work very well. Yeah, it has new content, but it doesn't work very well. So you can just enjoy the stuff that we actually done that have been fixed. But yeah, no, I think Nyx is in high contention for being seen and playable in Q2. Could release. I think that's the plan is for it to release at least internally, and then because I do think that they want to try to get both Nyx and Castor out next year. I think they're probably too ambitious because it's CIG. But I do think that you're going to see it just because of so many of the assets are already done. The mission givers are already done for Nyx. They just have some small updates to do for the asteroid and some of the other aspects of it. And the planets,
small updates for the asteroid, man, it was completely different.
I mean, yeah,
they
but
showed off at CitizenCon.
It's completely different. Yeah. But the difference is the thing about it is you never really went around the asteroid. it was just a ball of rock that you could drive on. There was no real interesting aspects to it other than that. So they kind of just removed all the parts that nobody used and just made it a cool asteroid base. But at the same time, what's actually changing, it looks like they haven't even really updated the landing zone itself. It's still the same landing zone. It's just also getting a cargo deck, and some other small additions here and there. And CIG has overhauled the entirety of Lorville in 6 months. So I don't see them being able to. I don't see that being a big deal for them to already in gray box working on.
I agree.
So
yeah. Especially since if you look at the progress tracker right now, the amount of teams still actively working on Squadron is just getting smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And especially location-wise and stuff, it's decreasing. So I think we're going to see, unless CIG does a huge amount of layoffs, I think we're going to see Nyx next year and Castor probably the year after, both pretty quickly. Maybe not even with that much content, but that's we'll see.
Mm-hmm. We'll see about that. Now let's I'll start with you on this one, Bob, for the next one, which is how about Q3 through Q2 through Q3. So from June to August, September-ish. What do you think what do you think CIG is going to be tackling in that span?
I mean, personally, I'm really hoping that CIG will do an R-Corp rework next year.
Okay.
Of the planet itself, because it's been degrading over, like, if you go down to the surface at a random spot right now, the terrain generation or the city generation, I guess, is a complete mess. Everything is through each other. It doesn't make any sense. It looks ugly. It's not up to standard anymore, and especially if they want to work on those sewers and other building interiors on R-Corp, I expect them to do a rework before that. And just like with Lorville, I don't think CIG is. I think their tools for planets are getting pretty good right now, and I think they're going to do a rework together with a lot of those Genesis tools coming in. So yeah, I'm hoping that we see that around that time next year, and then Nyx after. But yeah, other than that, what
Do you
else?
ever see any gameplay specifically?
I mean, I'd hope so. I think we're going to see a lot more missions because once again, those teams moving over from Squadron, just more like, I don't know, like investigation missions, more repair-related missions, more infiltration missions on outposts with all these secret passageways on outposts and stuff in Pyro. But other than that, I personally don't really expect to see. I mean,
features.
It's just I don't expect to see the gameplay I'm interested in, and I'm not really following the other gameplay, I'll be honest. So I'm not sure about the other stuff.
How about you, Vertigo?
Yep.
June through August.
I'm for like the next
for next year.
For next year,
I will remind the audience as well, because that is summer.
Summer.
And Star Citizen is notoriously bad with summer releases.
Yeah, usually you have stuff around Invictus, and you have stuff around CitizenCon. Usually CitizenCon's like all the hype shit comes out.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm expecting it to be pretty quiet, like mostly bug fixes, more mission content, little tiny stuff, maybe some UI updates here and there. Obviously ship sales and whatnot. I honestly, I think it's gonna be pretty quiet. CIG is gonna be saving everything up for Invictus launch week, not
For IE.
Intergalactic IE and Citizen.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be sitting on their laurels for this summer. So it's gonna be one of those snooze fests. Whatever game releases at that time, a lot of people are gonna be streaming, I guess.
Yeah.
Whatever new release.
Summer is
comes out
always
in summertime.
Summertime is always dead for gaming, unfortunately, because people like to do this thing called touch grass in the summer.
Yeah.
So tends to be antithetical to playing video games inside. I do think it's someone brought this up in chat, but I do think the one big thing we'll probably see in Q3 between June and August is going to be dynamic server meshing, at least in testing. I think they're gonna
Ooh, that's a good one. Yeah, maybe.
Because they
In tech preview, yeah.
In tech preview, because they definitely said last year and this year, Benoit and his team have been very, very adamant. They're like, we can get this done soon, like very quickly after static meshing. Now, I'd still think that there's probably more issues in meshing that they can unravel and figure out that they need to kind of optimize between now and June, which they'll probably do pretty well. Things will get better. The scalability and stuff like that. But I think next summer would be the perfect time for them to start adding testing for dynamic meshing to allow for and do crazy things. Please, CIG, if you're going to do dynamic testing, go for broke. You know, none of this. Oh, we're gonna do 1,000 players. Like hit us with a 5,000 player shard with dynamic meshing.
Yeah,
blow it up, explode it. Like people are gonna get mad about it anyways. But the headlines: 5,000 people per shard. Like go nuts, go insane. Like
make a queue system so people don't spawn in the same hub at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, the problem is like if you get 5,000 people into the same shard, like it's what can one shard hold?
Yeah.
If every MMO has this problem. If everybody converges into one shard, then you have to split that shard off into two separate shards. So basically,
servers, like, DGSs,
yeah. You don't have to do servers, sharding, whatever. But you'd have to you'd have to have two versions of Port Olisar.
Yeah.
Right? If you had 5,000 people show up at Port Olisar and then 5,00001 comes in,
yeah,
you're gonna have to split Port Olisar into two.
Oh yeah, like
and then have one person in one. You have to figure out what you're going to do with that. Every MMO has this problem. What happens when you get everybody in the server
one
into
place.
one location? What happens?
Yeah, but the thing is,
usually
I don't think this is an issue on the server side that much anymore, because the way CIG has implemented server meshing right now, I did some testing together with another streamer, Mind1. We did a shit ton of testing at server borders, and what we noticed is that no matter if you're on both, you can see each other, and when you're overlapping, because a ship can be on one
half and
the front of the ship can be on the other one, you can still see each other and mostly interact. There are some issues, especially with like tractor beams and salvage beams.
Yeah.
But mostly it's pretty functional. And the way CIG has said they will do it is by layering. So the thing is, you can see the other players around you. You can literally interact with them, even though you're both on a different DGS. And that should theoretically still work. Of course, client-side performance will be terrible with 5,000 people in one place.
100%.
So that is a big issue. But I don't think CIG...
And the game systems aren't even built for 5,000 people. Like
no, of course.
Like you need just can you imagine everyone trying to spawn a ship? Like in one area? So that let's just have a DGS which has, let's just say even a quarter of that. So like 1,000 people. Can you imagine 1,000 people on ArcCorp trying to call a ship? Like, can you imagine what that's going to do to the back end? That's part of the reason why I wanted to go nuts, is because I wanted to see them break the game so hard, because they're going to have to eventually deal with that situation. If CIG does want to, their big goal is to have one shard for every region. Like right now, CIG has a concurrency of about, based off of numbers that was released with the letter from the chairman. The average concurrency for this year, which was a low year in terms of participation, was about, on average, over about 4,000 people a day were playing Star Citizen, at any hour on average. So 4,000 people an hour every day for 365 days. That doesn't seem like a lot, but if you could get 4,000 people into one server or one shard, that would reduce the amount of, servers you need to purchase by a lot. And of course, we're going to see more players playing as 4.0 comes out. We've already seen a huge driving up of new player signups and people playing the game. I wouldn't be surprised if they had the highest amount of players they've had outside of a major event in years, just from this release. But
what do you mean by they will need less servers? What do you mean by that?
So the thing is like right now with like say 3.24, every instance is a server.
Right.
With 4.0, every shard has 10 servers, but they're only 600 people. So the problem is that long term, if you can get more people into a shard, you can reduce the number of servers overall, because if you can get each server to have an average of say 300 people in it and still function well, then you don't need as many to pay for as many servers as you would if you every single 100 person needed to, every 100 people per server. So having one big dedicated shard for an entire region would mean that there'd probably be
with dynamic server meshing, there would be less number of DGSs on average being used than if there were if you still had the same system. So it's that might be the case.
Yeah. So I think that's one of the reasons why I want them to break the game with some preview stuff, because it'll also be fun.
Mm-hmm. I don't know enough about how server meshing works to like talk about that. So.
I know enough to be dangerous, and that's about it. So with that being said, let's talk about the last big one, because I also think there's not going to be much in the summer, because it's the summer. If we're lucky, we might see new mission chains. I'd love to see a new mission chain, like an overdrive or save Stanton event.
We'll definitely see something.
Yeah,
a new mission chain of some kind.
Big one. Q4. So September through December. Bob, what do you think?
I still think it's mostly going to be a year with a lot of engine stuff, related stuff, like the Genesis and the Global Illumination.
Genesis,
exactly.
Weather system.
Fully switching over to Vulkan, probably. I expect that like at the end of next year.
Okay.
Because there's still a lot of stuff that needs to happen. For example, for my own system, DX11 still runs way better than Vulkan for whatever reason.
Mm-hmm.
But I do expect them to do a lot in that area. Once again, I expect nix in that last period. About the Arcorp rework, someone said something a good point as well. I do think Arcorp rework is probably after all the Genesis stuff is implemented, or Planetary Tech V5. So, good point. What else? I personally don't expect base building. My own prediction for base building, even the first simple implementation, is early 2026. I know there's probably a lot of people who are more positive on that.
I don't know, like base building next year, 2026. I'm not seeing it too well.
I see it.
I expect like the first like small scale buildings in 2026 personally, but like only in 2020, like after 2025. I'm not too positive on that area. The team did make great progress, but actually implementing it into the game, especially with all the shards that we have per region right now.
I could see crafting being expanded upon this year towards CitizenCon.
Yeah.
See more crafting stuff. Yeah. I know there's a few ships that have crafting stations in them, like the Carrack has an engineering bay. And
almost all the ships have a food fab now, so they have a fabricator in their ships.
And you have crafting is basically one of the most simplest game loops you can make. It's just you have item in your inventory, you remove item from your inventory, then put new item in your. That's basically how it happens.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of like shovelware games are crafting, looting, survival affairs.
So Vertigo.
Also,
go ahead. Oh, you have more?
Two more things. The actual org gameplay stuff, Mobiglass update. I think that's going to be more around Sitcon, or rather than earlier in the year. And finally, I'm hoping that they'll do something with the drones that they've been kind of teasing in this Zeus trailer. Maybe Vulcan or implementing the drones for the like the old repair system, basically, with the drones again, with the Garrick drones as well, that type of stuff.
Vertigo, what do you think? Because the fourth quarter is always the biggest quarter for Star Citizen. What do you think? What do you think they're going to go out with?
I could definitely see some Mobiglass updates, big old Mobiglass updates. As Bob said, maybe some org stuff, some more Spectrum integration, some better chat. They showed off the new communication stuff at Citizen, so I could definitely see all that stuff kind of maybe working its way in towards the end of next year. Definitely maybe see like more them expanding upon the crafting system, giving some of the other ships that have crafting capabilities more stuff to do. Maybe like more hydrogen mining for the Starfarer. You can actually do some stuff with hydrogen stuff because I mean they haven't touched on the fuel system for a long time. Because the Starfarer was supposed to be able to refine hydrogen fuel and fill itself up. And it makes sense you could do that in like a gas giant or something. So CIG may do something with that, where you could like mine hydrogen fuel from gas pockets, sell it as a trade good. I'm not too. There's no indication that CIG is going to be working on that because we haven't heard them talk about it, but it's still something that can be done. Obviously more ships, probably like the Perseus is going to come out around that time. I think CIG's working on it. So we'll see more of that stuff going on. And honestly, like they already with the Perseus and the Polaris. I think they said the Ironclad was going to be working on as well.
Yep, they showed it in a silhouette video at Sitcon. But
Sitcon. So it would definitely make sense for like more org stuff. You have a lot bigger ships coming in. We already have quite a few big ships in jump. The Polaris. So if they're gonna add more, it'd be nice to have like org
tools. Yeah.
And I don't think we're gonna have another system. They may have like a big org event.
You don't think we're gonna see Nyx next year?
I think Nyx next year makes sense. Towards the end of next year.
You think? Okay.
They're having trouble. The problem right now is they're having troubles making the star systems. Because all their team is probably working on the star systems for like Squadron 4, getting them all finished up and whatnot.
I think a lot of those teams are moved over. So I believe we'll still have it because it seems like CIG was setting the tone. Because someone asked this in chat. It's important to note that CIG showed off for base building, Nyx, and Castra. All of those things they showed off, they said were in gray box. And gray box is an important feature because gray box is the middle part of development. You have white box, gray box, and then final art. And CIG adds another step between gray box and final art, which is Laud 0. So, and gray box can be big. You can just enter gray box, or you can just be at the end of gray box. It's a huge thing. It's a huge variance. But the fact that they say that all of these things are in gray box means that they're out of just the planning basic plot idea and are into the actual development of the like locations, the buildings, all of those sorts of, all of those sorts of aspects. So I believe, I don't think they will, but I do believe that they're going to try to implement Castra next year at that time. I do think that that's going to be their big maypole sort of end of the year roo-rahs. We're going to get Castra out. Do I think it's actually going to come out? No. It may end up in tech preview over the holidays as a thank you. But that would mean give you 4 systems by the end of next year, 3 fully out, 1 in testing. And I do think that they want to get Castra out before the middle of 2026 because that would be the perfect system to have Invictus celebrations. It's literally a former military base. So that would, and it'd also be a great place to have release around Squadron, the big military game. So, and yeah, I think, I do believe that the big thing next year, or for that fourth quarter, is probably going to be base building. I think that's really what they're going to do. But I don't think it's going to be big. I think it's going to be a couple of shacks and some mining material. That's it. We might see it in preview in the summer, but I think that's going to be the thing. We won't see like, you're not going to be building ships. You're not going to be, building massive bases or space stations. You'll be able to do like a general purpose building, a crafting building, and a mining building or something like that. The only thing that, if that's the case, then the only other thing that I could think of that they might be introducing is refining gameplay for players.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only other thing I could see at the end of next year. So,
Paul, could you after this episode share me some Amazon link or something to the hopium you're buying? Because I need some of that too. Oh.
Yeah.
I'm not on this. I don't expect to see anything from Castra at all. Maybe it's just because like we saw Pyro Grey Box stuff in 2019.
Yes.
And I know that was bound to technology, server meshing, of course, and that was a big limitation in getting that out the door. But I still don't believe that Castra is going to be next year. And I do believe it's going to be 2026. But even then, I expect it like later in the year.
I think
not at the start.
Like I said, I think CIG is planning on having it at the end of next year. I don't think it'll actually be the end of next year. But the thing that, as I would argue, the internet's outside of CIG, the foremost expert on the Castra system, having called it 3 years before it was announced that it was going to be the third system, calling it the third system. The reasons why they chose it as the third system is really simple. A, it's connected to Nix and Pyro with a jump point. So it's already got two systems already connected to it. And B, it's tiny. It is tiny and mostly empty. It has one airless moon or one airless planet, which gets bombed to hell and back, but has nothing that much there. So it's like a place you might be able to build a base and get some resources out of, sort of thing. But it has one habitable planet. And that planet's main thing is it's an old military base. So it allows them to take some of the architecture stuff that they built for bases and say maybe squadron, and then kind of test a little bit about how that works. So two systems, pretty small, or two planets, pretty small. And the fact, I wouldn't think that it would actually be in like a tech preview next year if CIG hadn't said that it was gray box. That's the big thing for me, is them saying it's in gray box makes me go, hold up. Like, let's rewind that. This is gray box. I'm sorry.
But even then, if you looked at the gray box during SitCon,
it's very
especially
early
Sherman.
Gray box. Yeah, it's early.
Yeah,
gray box.
if you looked at Sherman, the textures are the same textures on parts of that building. The textures they were using, I guess it's just to color them in. Were the exact same textures as Everest. The models were pretty low quality, except like a few small areas. And those few small areas were in most cases the hangars, which are obviously the same hangars as we have in Stanton. And the same goes for the entire, the stations they showed, the player space stations.
Yeah.
They said gray box as well. And I don't think it's even reasonable to expect those before 2027, 2028.
I mean, I disagree. I think that's more of a 2026 thing, but I also think that there's a lot more, because they're going to have to fill out the interior, and a lot of that stuff was still even slideshows. Like the interior upgrades were all slideshows. So like they having the exterior in gray box makes sense, but the interior is a little different. I still think that that Castra, they're shooting for it for next year, but I don't think they're going to make it next year. To be very clear,
right?
I do think it is still going to be in preview, but I do think that they'll have it finished in some way.
One more thing about the base building. I think someone in chat made a good point. I don't remember who. They said like for base building you would need drones and crafting first. So I agree with that. That's why I expect drones, and as Vertigo said, probably some form of crafting as well. Early, like next year probably, but I don't expect base building next year yet. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Like CIG is more than welcome to prove us wrong.
Yeah, of course. Please do, CIG. Please do.
Someone said, knowing what the intended gameplay is, would you have wanted Pyro 2 years ago with the systems they had then? It's important to also remember that the reason why Pyro took so long to make had less to do with them making systems and more to do with server meshing. Like it didn't take CIG
I'm sure that
8
Chris
years
Roberts had
to
everybody.
make one system. It was.
I'm pretty sure Chris Roberts had everybody working on like Squadron 42 systems.
Yeah,
at
that too.
that point.
Or aspect.
So he was
aspects
having
for it, yeah.
Odin plus whoever else, Vegas,
Yeah.
whatever else they're up to with Squadron 42. I'm sure he was making them work on those.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was like Chris Roberts, like they had a choice a long time ago. They could do what we do for like Star Citizen Arena Commander right now, where you just pick what game mode you want to play. You could choose to play in stand or you could choose to play in pyro, but you'd have the same limit of players either or. You wouldn't be able to cross between the two without going back to menu.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to do that because it would mean they would have had to have supported technology that would just be legacied away in the future at some point in time. So they kept their eyes on the prize and said, okay, when server meshing's ready, then we'll have pyro. So when it looked like server meshing was getting ready to be a thing, they're like, okay, now let's start working on pyro. Now we have like Squadron 42 is almost finished. Server meshing's getting ready. Now let's get pyro underway. That's what it really came down to.
Yeah.
They explained that choice a long time ago, but I mean, they could have done that. They had an option in the menu or a loading screen. You fly up to a wormhole
and it cutscenes you. Yeah.
And it cutscenes you into pyro. They could have done that.
So as I was systems is in technology of the game, not the actual star system. Yeah, that's kind of what Vertigo was talking about.
Yeah. Technology.
Yeah, the issue with they could have done that. I mean, yes, that's true. But then since game servers were all separate before, I think there would have still been a lot of issues because then how
persistence would have been the same.
I feel like they would have needed to implement.
Well, like I said, they would have had to have supported that.
Yeah,
they would have had to support that loading screen.
Exactly.
Handing off persistence to a new server, and it's just like let's do server meshing.
Yeah,
when it's ready.
It's like 2 years of work that they would have put in and then delayed the development of server meshing even longer. So just get it done. So
personally, I also feel like CIG would have pyro was simpler before, especially in 2020, 2021, and that's why they also showed they were working on Nix back then, expecting that server meshing would be in earlier. But then, because server meshing was taking so long, they kept adding more to pyro and adding all these other stations next to Ruin Station.
Yeah, I saw someone in chat say like it's gonna take them half a year to finish pyro. They're never gonna finish pyro. They're never gonna finish Stanton. They're gonna keep adding stuff to Stanton and pyro and Nyx and Castra and Terra until the game shuts down. Like
the Aaron Halo belt, guys.
The Aaron Halo belt is a main feature that they just haven't, and the belt stations. Like they haven't
talked about it for years.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually they're going to get finished with the system. That system's far enough along that they're going to move on to next system and next system, next system.
Yeah, but they'll always come back to it and work on it.
I don't think they will. They may get a system that's like the Retaliator, which is just good enough. It works, or the Connie. It's an asset that works. It's good enough. There's no reason to change anything about it. And they just keep adding new systems after that. And they're just like, okay, like this old system is just an old system. We're pushing the game in this direction. A lot of MMOs do that, where they just constantly push a new expansion pack, which has a new part of the world.
Yeah,
that expansion pack basically takes part of that world. You could maybe take some of the expansion stuff back to the old game, but really, like the expansion is like its own little contained space.
But the MMOs will also go back and do patches and updates for the old spaces and update.
You've seen that with like EVE Online, where they did like massive graphical updates to the entire game.
No, but I mean, like World of Warcraft famously did like a Cataclysm, which basically changed even the old parts of the game entirely.
But that was a major expansion.
But that's what I'm saying.
I can see CIG doing that, but I don't know.
I think CIG is going to go back every time, especially if they add a feature at some point, like roads, for example, between outposts using Sarkitect, of course, to make them connected with roads. I don't think they're just going to be like, oh yeah, Stanton's an old system, we're not going to add it. I do think they will go back to it and add at least some parts of it, especially since until we have Terra, Stanton is probably going to be the starting system.
Yeah. Until 1.0. 1.0 will be where Terra becomes the starting system, but like until then, Stanton's going to be that. So, but yeah. Let's move on to the last little bit, just kind of overall. Knowing what 2024 was, 2025, I want you to reach into your crystal ball, and I want you both to kind of imagine.
It's getting spicy already.
How 2025 is going to be overall. Do you think we're going into a good year, or do you think we're going into sort of another stagnant year where, or do you think it's going to be this is the last year Star Citizen is ever going to exist and it's going to fail? 30 days top or 90 days tops, whatever it was. I'll start with you on this one, Bob, and with Vertigo, and then I'll end with it. So,
I'm a little bit, I don't know if scared is the right word. I think it depends on a lot. If CIG decides, oh, Squadron is feature complete, we're going to release it next year, let's start working on the second chapter. I think next year or if they decide to work on Soul Singer, whatever that may be.
Yeah, I was gonna remind you about Soul Singer. We don't know what it is. It could be a piece of technology. It could be a new game.
Yeah, but based on the leak from what was this article, Inside Gaming, whatever, it was an idea for a separate game. If CIG decides to do something like that, or if CIG does massive layoffs because of financial issues or whatever, because remember, there are a few of these investors from a few years ago, and they are allowed to pull out some of the money. They weren't really investors because they're not earning a lot on it. It's not like public company investment, but I don't know if you guys remember this. This was 2022,
yeah,
I think. When this happened.
I will clarify some of those things because I've done a lot of look into this, and I've talked with people who have treated 0-11 did a lot of look at this. They're called the Calders. They're a family, and they're personal friends of the Robertses. They're personal friends with Chris and his wife, which is why they invested. They also own a bunch of media companies, like advertising companies. And while I don't think it was ever explicitly stated, it was definitely implied that the reason why they were investing into Star Citizen
CIG.
or to CIG was because they wanted to be part of the ground floor for the marketing campaign for Squadron. They want to be in charge of that. And so that's when
basically a sweetheart investors. There's very little strings attached to.
Yeah, they're not really there as a we're
gonna get money back on this.
Yeah, they weren't really there. They were more personal friends who were doing this for their friends. But they're like, hey, and on top of that, they've had multiple chances to pull out. They haven't. And in fact, they just doubled down because when what is his name? The co-founder who left this year.
Ortwin.
When Ortwin left earlier in the summer, when he pulled out, those investors who were the Calders purchased his shares. So
right, okay.
So those you don't purchase shares in a company you think is failing.
No, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I will address this. I've addressed this before as well. The Inside Gaming thing, the guy who does the articles for Star Citizen on that, he's done some really good stuff in the past, but the quality of his articles about Star Citizen has been shockingly bad. A lot of the content, his most recent article was talking specifically about Ortwin leaving, and it's Ortwin left in the summer. We all knew that he left in the summer, and he's making it as if some big news. A lot of the stuff he's dropped and the timing he's dropped it feels very like he's invested a lot of time and energy, and he's just desperately trying to get some engagement back with it. It feels very, it's bad quality even for his standards, a lot of the stuff. And even for instance, there was a famous, at least in my Discord, there was a big brouhaha because there was one of the women who was actually on Star Citizen Live and ISC who worked for Turbulent. She famously got laid off after the merger happened, and she was very upset by that and felt that she was getting screwed over by Turbulent in the process, and they were trying to move everybody to the UK, and she refused to do that, and it was a pretty nasty thing that she wrote very publicly on
Imagine
LinkedIn.
that.
Yeah,
an employee gets fired and then has some opinions.
Yeah, but I mean,
laid off. Employer gets furloughed and has opinions.
The point is that case, very, very negative look at CIG.
Yep.
He never mentioned it, but it's been popular all over the community. I've heard about it, but other people have heard about it, and I'm not an investigative reporter. I don't make my job investigating things. So if I know how to do it, and yes, I cover the game, but I didn't go looking for it. It just people found it and showed it to me. You'd expect somebody who is a professional reporter to do so. So anything taken from Inside Gaming, in my opinion, is very grain of salt, because For whatever reason, he's just either his heart's not into it or he's listening to some weird people. It's just one of those, I don't know what he's talking about a lot of time. So
even then, we
Yes.
still don't know what Soul Singer is. We have no clue.
that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, like I said, it could
so-
be a piece of technology like server meshing. CIG just slapped a fancy name onto it, and they Soul Singer on
Mhm.
there. Could be a new game. Could be
or
Squadron
some AI
42's.
tech or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
AI tech could be the sequel to Squadron 42. Could be called Squadron 43 Soul Singer or some shit.
Mhm.
Could be a completely different IP. They just because when you finish, I hate to break it to y'all, when you start wrapping up production on a project in a gaming company, you immediately start working on the next project because you want to keep making money.
Yep.
Right? If that's what you're doing, if you're in the business of making video games, you're going to make more than one. You don't just shut the company down after you release one good video game. You try again
Mhm.
at least. So
Mhm.
after
you-
they're done with Squadron 42,
They might
they're going to
do
want to do
this
something else after that, and it may not be Squadron 43. Squadron
yeah,
42
2
squared.
part 2. Yeah.
Electric
Squared.
Boogaloo.
So overall,
Electric Boogaloo.
if you could summarize it in a couple of sentences or like in like a sentence or so, Bob,
Mhm.
is next
Next
year
year.
good or bad?
So, if CIG doesn't get into financial trouble or work on the sequel of Squadron or Soul Singer or whatever that is, I think next year is going to be actually pretty good because of the letter of the chairman, and because of, Pyro coming in. There's still a lot of gameplay in there that a lot of people haven't engaged with yet because of the current state, and just based off the way CIG wants to go now, based off that letter of the chairman and Sitcon, I do think next year is going to be a pretty good year. I just hope it's also good, new players coming in and stuff like that. So yeah, I would say good. Personally, maybe not great because I don't expect to see any passenger transport gameplay really.
That's your thing.
So-
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Vertigo. Next
Mhm.
year, good, bad. What's your opinion on what's coming up next year?
Like I fully expect CIG to keep developing the game,
Of
to get more
course.
stuff, more things. I'm hoping with 4.0 that we're gonna have more stability, and Elliot is gonna be able to go wild and not have Siege of Orison bullshit happen to him. Because the one thing that's holding back the people who are designing missions and events in Star Citizen is the game engine itself just being an absolute mess. And it's hard to make anything really interesting when you can only paint in black and white, and you only get black half the time.
Yeah.
And that was like Siege of Orison was great when it worked.
Mm-hmm.
The couple of times it worked for me. Most of the time, the guy would spawn in the ground. He wouldn't spawn at all. He wouldn't have the items on him. He needed to turn off the stuff, or the game didn't register, or the server would crash. Same with the Xenothreat thing. They did the new Xenothreat thing this year, and every time I accepted a mission, the server would do a crash recovery, and I'd lose the mission. And then
Yeah.
I had to wait 30 minutes for the mission to pop up again. And this is stupid. I can't take this. And so I just go play Helldiver or something instead. So I'm hoping next year that is a lot less and less and less and less and less as the year progresses. As the next year progresses, 2025, we just see less and less issues, and we start seeing more and more Star Citizen into the project it's always supposed to. This entire
mean,
time for the past 13 years. That's one thing that always blows my mind. Is just how much time and how much money has passed, and Star Citizen is still it's still an art project. I actually got moderated on the forums because I called Star Citizen an art
Really?
interactive art gallery. Yeah, Knight Rider took exception to me saying that that Star Citizen was an interactive art experience. It was an actual game.
I've heard people legitimately say Star Citizen is not a game, it's an experience. Not in terms of like the negative connotations, but in the like Star Citizen is beyond just a game. You know, a game has a end, it has different things. Star Citizen is not trying to be a game. It's trying to be your life, you know.
But my right now this year, I looked at Star Citizen as something that was just you really don't play. It's something where maybe it works for you, maybe it doesn't. But really what works in Star Citizen is getting your ship, taking off, landing on a planet, taking screenshots, saving it as your desktop background, and just going to play something else that works better. I'm hoping next year we'll see more gameplay stuff, maybe some more Arena Commander stuff. Now that CIG's got their network code kind of figured out, at least they got more of a more narrow road to walk when it comes to the network stuff. So everybody else, all the other moving pieces can now work around server meshing, and everything starts working better now. That's what I'm hoping.
I mean, just based off the high server FPS and how responsive NPCs are right now, I do think next year is just going to be better. Just because even if they make the old missions work in server meshing, they're a lot more fun.
Yeah, no, I like NPCs aren't amazing in 4.0. They're not like the hardest and best NPCs I've ever seen. But the fact that like you can go into a contested zone, and the second you fire, if there are more than one NPCs, they immediately go like they're looking somewhere else, and they go, "Hello, you're firing a gun. I'm going to fire at you now." And it's instantaneously, or not instantaneously. It's you can see them pull their gun out, turn towards you, aim and fire like you would see an NPC in any other game, rather than just sort of you unload an entire magazine of assault rifle ammo into the dirt, and they'll sit there for 5 minutes and go, "Oh right, there's somebody here," and then turn at you. It's just a lot much better. So
yeah, I had that with like the PTU for 4.0, where I was having NPCs teleport all over the place. I'm shooting at them where they are, and they're not taking any damage, but they're shooting at me and hitting me. And
yeah,
That's still an issue, to be honest. I have met two invincible NPCs, so they still exist.
but it's a lot better with 4.0. I would say for sure. It's a lot more
Better
of a
than
game.
life, that's for sure.
Yeah. I think next year is going to be a year of, like I said, experimentation. I think we're going to see a lot more content out, but I don't think we're going to see a lot of features. I think the only features we really know that CIG is working on that they have stated are scanning, base building, and the monster hunting mission sequence. That's it. Everything else is sort of in like Maelstrom's being worked on. They've been working on the new
I
quantum
forgot about
travel.
Maelstrom, yeah.
They've had the new quantum travel stuff for a while. Like there's a lot of other things that have sort of in the wind, but those three are the only ones that we have seen concrete evidence of them working on, either visual or in their monthly reports, that they've been specifically working on for specifically release. So, and engineering. Yes. And so someone's put on engineering. Engineering should have come out with 4.0, but it's just,
I mean, honestly,
they didn't have time to test it, is what
I'm
they've said.
fine.
So.
Engineering can be pushed, can be kicked down the road. You got more than enough shit in Pyro to keep you occupied, folks. And like, really, what's holding back Star Citizen like within the next year is like the quality of the game. Actually, getting actual people to sit down and play it, and crew your Idris, crew your Polaris, crew your 890 jump. Actually do like contested zones and shit. That's kind of like the problem with Star Citizen. Like the art's great, the music's great. Everybody loves Pedro. I don't like the new Pedro that much.
I love it.
I'm gonna say a hot take. There you go. I don't like the new work that Pedro's put out.
Get out.
That weird synthy piece they keep using. I hate that.
I love it.
Good for you.
Pick 'em.
Good for you. I'm glad you like it.
Keep digging that hole there, Vertigo. It's the one thing
I like the Project Wingman soundtrack. I like the Helldiver soundtrack.
I like those too, but you know,
yeah.
for different reasons.
So like I'm not one of those people that like goes on a talk show that says like, oh, wonderful, like Radiohead and like Bon Jovi. Like I like everybody. Garth Brooks. No. I actually have
Opinions.
things I like, and I like them very specifically for what they are. I have things I don't like, and I will talk about them both. But yeah, like
very Interstellar.
Yeah, it feels very spacey.
Yeah,
definitely kind of interstellar vibes. So yeah, like I'm hoping that we'll get more stability, we'll get better reaction with the game. The game world doesn't ignore you nearly as much when you do something. The game recognizes that you did a thing and it does the thing you press the button and it does the thing you press the button for. You press the reload button, your gun actually reloads.
Mm-hmm.
I can pull out the med pen, guys. It works.
I know, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm hoping for that, and we get that stuff down. We get more people into the game, and like, hey, Star Citizen actually kind of fun to play. Let's do some of these contested zones. Let's get some of this loot.
I'm hoping for summer. I think next year summer is going to be the summer. It'll be the hot Star Citizen summer for. Because,
oh! I got another one, Paul. PvP is not going to kill Star Citizen.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah,
I agree.
like you go to the forums, right? You go to the Spectrum, the official forums for Star Citizen, and you go to Reddit occasionally, and you read about this, how PvP is killing Star Citizen, and people are going to leave if CIG doesn't do something about the state of Pyro and PvP and whatnot. Like I don't think that's gonna kill the game.
No. I was
No.
surprised. I'm surprised. I have jumped multiple times through Pyro and Stanton's jump point, expecting to get ganked, and I have not yet been ganked since EPTU. I don't know why. Maybe just because the bugs are causing the PvPers to just kind of chill out and not do something, or the gankers.
It's gonna happen. It's
Eventually.
gonna happen one of these days.
But
it's happened to me, but
It
Yeah.
swings. It has swings and roundabouts with the popularity of Star Citizen.
Yeah.
When Star Citizen gets really popular, you're gonna have more assholes coming in just naturally. And then, of course, when things go down, the player base kind of rescinds. People who want to play Star Citizen get bored after a while. I think what's happening right now is everybody's just exploring Pyro. Everybody's just seeing what's out there and all the cool stuff. So
there's still stuff. They're not bored. Yeah.
We're shaking the keys in front of the toddler. The toddler's like really engrossed in the keys, but soon the toddler's going to get hungry and it's going to want a blankie and a teat to suck on. But it's going to happen. Gate camping is going to be a thing in Star Citizen. I have no idea how CIG is going to counter gate camping and offline base raiding in the future.
I know how
they're going to have to come up with something.
I know how they're going to do gate camping, and you're going to hate it.
What?
Armistice zones.
I am of the opinion that hard armistice zones are never going away.
Yeah.
Especially like I think they're going to be limited only to the newbie areas. Wherever new players spawn initially, you're going to have hard armistice zones where you cannot draw any weapons, you cannot take any hostile.
Yeah.
But once you get out of these high security areas where newbies spawn, then it's going to be like soft armistice zones where maybe you can't draw like a personal firearm, or maybe you have to turn your personal firearms in. Because there's always going to be people out there who are going to be hunting the new people to make their lives miserable. Welcome to Star Citizen, motherfucker. Here's an Aurora. Boom.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I am not against the idea of welcome to Pyro, skablat in your face sort of situation. Like
I'm fine with that because it's been beaten into us.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's
the lore
Pyro's lawless. It's the PvP system.
Yeah, it's in the lore. It's in the game design. It's in the mission design. It's in the like the environmental storytelling.
If you can't get into Pyro tonight, like if you can't get into Pyro right now because you keep getting killed, like you're just gonna have to come back later when the trolls aren't there. You can't pay the troll toll.
Yeah,
you're gonna have to come back when they're offline, if they ever go offline.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting how CIG will deal with it because it kind of surprised me that the jump point station at the Pyro side. The Stanton Gateway, basically. Yeah. That station is still UEE controlled.
Yeah.
And has a cover array in Pyro.
That's how CIG is going to reduce the gate camping Pyro. But eventually we're going to get systems that are lawless that are connected to each other. So lawless
and Pyro. Yeah.
Yeah. Nix and Pyro. What's going to happen between those two systems?
Yeah.
I'm really curious.
Lore-wise, nothing should happen, right?
I mean, I'm quite curious what they will do because it wouldn't surprise me if CIG just comes up with a reason for the UEE to still be there because like they have to, do checkpoints basically in these lawless places.
What I could see CIG doing is having the local security take control of the jump point.
I hope they do that.
You'll have headhunters, Xenothreat, or Citizens of Prosperity, whoever the dominant faction around near the jump point is, take control of that jump point, and they'll have limited security there.
I think with Pyro, it'll probably be the Citizens for Prosperity because that makes the most sense. So, but yeah.
So you'll have someone running that station with weapon systems active, or it could be a completely independent faction that just like they exist there just to run the station. Everybody, because what two things are always true in life, Paul?
Death and taxes.
Death and taxes.
Yeah.
So you're gonna have to pay a tribute to get to Pyro, to Nyx.
Yeah.
You have to pay somebody to use that jump point. And they have guns because they collect taxes, and those taxes go to pay for their opulent lifestyle and those fucking guns.
Yes.
Well, that make everyone pay taxes.
Everyone is gonna have to pay fees. Even you're gonna have to pay taxes in Pyro. Like your taxes are going to be paid in
blood, sweat, or money, ass, grass, or cash.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
You're gonna either pay in bullets or bills, one of the two.
Yeah. So like you could just have like kind of the same stuff that happens already in Stanton, just more localized. You can still have the crime stat system.
Yeah.
Just when you enter Headhunter space, suddenly your crime stat pops up, just like Grim Hex.
Yeah,
you go to
so-
Grim Hex and Pet Stanton, your crime stat marker goes away.
That's just
but as soon as you
reputation.
leave Grim Hex, your
Yeah.
crime stat marker shows back up.
So the same way as Elite Dangerous does it, basically, because
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
have a crime stat system as well in that same way.
Uh,
I also go on.
No, go ahead.
Oh yeah, exploration. I feel like the CIG will also give a pretty big role to those like jump points that just kind of pop up.
Oh, yeah, the
And
transients.
then
Yeah.
the transients that will be different routes, and I think that's kind of what they're currently thinking of making the main exploration gameplay. People finding those and then selling them for cheaper than the tax you have to pay to, or the toll you have to pay to go to another
Yeah.
system.
And because they're temporary, they may reset every week or something like that. So you
Yeah,
can only
yeah.
have
Or they
certain-
just disappear if people leave and don't keep them open.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, in some way. I agree. I think that'll happen. But at least initially, they're going to do something to keep it safe. But all right,
Yeah,
I think it was a
it's
good discussion on the future of Star Citizen in 2025. I think generally most of us are optimistic of what CIG is going to do. And I do think the one theme, if you feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, is that CIG is definitely going to be a heavy emphasis on content over features next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I think that's the we kind of pulled out from. But thank you for watching. If you did enjoy this, please hit that like button, subscribe for more content, and hit the bell icon to be notified when these release. Like I said, this is the first time that I'm going to be uploading this to a new channel, a completely different channel, youtube.com/@the-captain's-table-podcast. So please do subscribe to us there if you're watching this live. And if you're watching this recorded, come on back to youtube.com/TheAstroPub live to watch these live on Twitch. And you can also check us out at twitch.tv/TheAstroPub to watch all of my content live. Make sure you check out HC Vertigo at twitch.tv/HC Vertigo. Check out Build and Play on various social media sites, and of course Qantas Starlines is the organization. If you're interested in that sort of transport gameplay. Thank you both for coming on.
Gameplay.
What's that?
Touring gameplay.
Touring
mostly at the
gameplay.
moment.
I love the idea of doing little lore tours, across the Stanton system and things like that. It's always fun. And yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for hanging out. And like I say every time, hope to see you someday in the black. We're not going anywhere quite yet, chat. We're going to be back here in a few moments. Make sure that you're asking questions in chat. If you have questions, we're going to grab something to drink and use the restroom. When we come back, we'll answer the questions. So don't go anywhere. And we're back with a question and answer session with HC Vertigo and Build and Play. So welcome to the first official Captain's Table After Dark, where we get a little naughty answering some of these questions.
Let me just unbutton my pants real
Yeah,
quick.
I'm gonna loosen the tie, grab yourself a
Right.
cognac, you know, get a little smoking jacket and such. All right, let's start off. These are all questions that have been asked by the audience live. So if you want to join us live, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub live, come join us and ask these questions yourself. The first question, we don't have too many questions, but the first question is from Orion, who asks, any insight on the intent of CIG? Any insight on if the intent of CIG is that at some point, parasite ships and vehicles will need to be locked down to a vehicle pad or the cargo grids to quantum jump?
I don't think we'll ever see that.
No.
CIG has indicated time and time again that if you have unsecured cargo in your cargo hold, it's just going to go wherever when you do maneuvers. And so why would you need to have a vehicle locked down to a grid in order to engage quantum drive? That doesn't make any sense.
Hold on, I think the bots crashed.
Oh no, not the crash.
Yeah.
Because the
Questions
bot,
start coming through the recent ones.
yeah, it should pop up right now once it gets populated.
But no, I don't think they will ever lock those things down. I mean, why it works right now perfectly fine. And I think CIG kind of likes that people just kind of put AT vehicles inside of a ship for quantum jumps and stuff. As long as it's within the quantum bubble, lore-wise, it also makes sense. It's an Alcubierre style bubble. It doesn't need to be locked down.
We don't quite have that system where you can drag non-quantum capable ships into quantum just by being in close proximity.
Mhm.
I can't remember if there was an IP that had that, where if you're within a certain distance of a ship that was engaging its FTL drive, you'd just be dragged into FTL with it.
There's a couple that happened with Star Trek, Star Wars. They both have them. As long as you're within the warp bubble of a ship, you can go with it.
Yeah, you can extend your warp bubble around another ship, and
Yeah.
they had that in Star Trek Enterprise, where they had like 2 NX class ships like extend their warp bubbles.
Yeah. They did it in Halo, where like a slip space drive opened. And then they fought the an amber clad went through, and it happened in Halo 3 too.
I don't know if CIG is going to do that. Usually, you have to be attached to the ship's physics grid in order to quantum jump with the ship.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been some times where sometimes the ship's physics grid is not inside the ship, and sometimes you find yourself falling out of the ship into quantum when the ship's in quantum. And sometimes the physics grid will actually be on top of the ship, where I've had my 890 jump have extra stuff like on top of the hangar, even though the hangar is closed and the elevator's all the way down, and I have a ship on the hangar elevator, I could have stuff on the hangar door because there's a physics grid attachment there. Yeah. So I don't know if CIG is going to force that on us. If I would say no, they're not going to, because I haven't seen hide nor hair or any indication that CIG wants stuff locked down for quantum travel.
Nope.
Like vehicles specifically.
The vehicles will be force applied though. So like if you do hard turns, they're going to probably, your vehicle, if it's not locked down, it'll probably bounce more. So there'll be some damage to it, but
That's going to be hilarious.
Yeah.
Tanks flying through the cargo bay.
Unless it's some sort of in some sort of a region where it should be locked down, it'll just.
I'm guessing if you don't put it on a. That's one thing. Like this was the complaint I had with the Valkyrie. Remember when the Valkyrie first released and CIG's like, oh, it only holds vehicles.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just like, why not just do both? Why not vehicles and cargo? If you can lock a vehicle down, you can lock cargo down. If you can lock cargo down, you can lock a vehicle down.
I think they've gone that direction now, but
I like that for spaceships, where you have the option to either choose cargo or vehicle. So I would imagine if you can latch cargo to it, you could put a vehicle on top of that pad, and the vehicle will stay.
Yeah,
but if you put a vehicle somewhere else, then it'll be to the whims of G-forces and how much of an asshole you fly like.
Yeah,
and so you may be doing dogfighting maneuvers, and your color is black with your Gray Cat rock in the back. And then you land after your dogfight is over, and you're like, okay, I'm going to do some mining. You come back, and your Gray Cat rocks like in 3 pieces.
Because you decided to drive it like UPS treats its packages.
Yeah. Or the right pulse. The pulse could be put anywhere in the ship, and
Yeah.
you decide to leave it in your captain's bunk or something, and you come back to it after you're done flying your Polaris, and suddenly you just wreckage
everywhere.
With
everywhere in your
Maelstrom,
cabin.
it's just like
Pieces. Here's your
it's
like
just a fire.
Yeah. It's just literally just a fire in your
in your captain's quarters.
yeah. Like this, what was that? What was that Parks and Rec or Community where the guy comes in with a pizza and everybody's on fire?
It
and
was
whatnot?
Community.
it
Yeah,
co-
it was Community. Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Chimpasta, who asks, "Do you feel CIG should skip CitizenCon until Squadron 42 is out?" Personally, I think they should have skipped CitizenCon for a long time. I was not a fan of CitizenCon since 2018. I think they're good, but I don't think they're worth the delays that they put into development. So yeah, I agree. I think they should. I do believe they should skip CitizenCon until probably until 4.0, or not 4.0, 1.0, or at least till like, because there's just, what are we going to get at CitizenCon next year? Like, obviously we don't know. But
I think CitizenCon is a good investment because it builds hype and they always make money off of it.
Yeah.
And the fact that you have a fan convention, an official fan convention helps legitimize the project even more.
Yeah, I personally think it should continue, preferably somewhat similar to how they did it this year, where they had the content team make a lot more of the presentations instead of the developers themselves. That's a good change, and I hope they kind of continue on that and make sure to take away as much work from the devs so that the content team, the ISC team and stuff can do that stuff for SitCon. And then I do think it's a good thing to keep because, as Vertigo said, I think it's a pretty major hype builder. It kind of rejuvenates the community every time. And even if you would spread all of that content that they have in SitCon out over all the ISCs and that kind of content, I don't think it will be as effective.
It won't have the same impact. What you
No,
really
exactly.
need, you need something to shock the system. You need sizzle, you need zazz, you need pizzazz. You got to have the lights, the flash, the cameras, and you have to hit it all at once really hard. And that's what shocks the internet. That's what gets you on the roadmap. That's what gets you in everybody's mouth. Just speak your name.
And also, it's such an important thing for the community in general because we are pretty involved in the community with the podcast and content creation. You guys especially, but for an average guy,
they don't pay attention. Yeah.
No, they don't. But then SitCon they do, and then you have these guys at SitCon who've never gone to SitCon before and don't watch SCL, but they're there because the community is there and they can visit these org booths. And I think the concept of it.
And CitizenCon is one of those big things, especially if you have a really big event. It's one of those big things that, like I said, when it hits, it's not just the people like us, content creators, specifically Star Citizen content creators, that are talking about it. It's also the other normie press, like Bloomberg, and guys like Toll Biscuit, Asmongold, and Summit, and
Jack Frags.
Jack Frags, Soda Poppin'.
I agree, and I know that it's really, a lot of it is also for the developers because the developers get to interact with the community and go, oh, there are people. Like the people who play our games are here and they know our names or they know what's going on and they want to talk with us, and it gets them excited because for those of you who don't know, this is incredibly unusual that the developer, a line level developer, has interactions with the fandom on this sort of intimate level. That doesn't happen in video games. At best, somebody who worked on
indie games,
except for indie games.
Yeah, indie games.
Yeah,
but they used to a long time ago.
Indie games have their own convention.
Yeah, it used to be a long time ago, back when E3 was just first starting out.
Yeah,
that you'd have developers go down to the showroom floor, and then this was back during print media, right? Back when we had magazines from a newsstand.
Yeah,
or you mail order like subscriptions to magazines for an entire year. PC Gamer. You used to have that where you'd have like Microsoft would send out developers to E3 and they would talk earnestly and honestly with like the press, but then they would have like communication problems and there would be miscommunications, like things would be taken out of context, and then people got PR departments and they sent those people out right to E3 to kind of help massage the message a little bit, so people just reported on what they were told.
Yeah.
But yeah, you usually these days you don't hardly ever get direct access to somebody who works on the game, who actually codes or builds levels. to get them to talk about it. And even in Star Citizen, we still see those problems to this day where people misconstrued statements by the developers. They get a little hyped up, a little hoped up.
Mm-hmm. Well, and then the opposite is true. If you're somebody who has been working on a shader, on like shaders for a game for 3 years, you're only going to see your team members and your maybe you'll see the rest of the team in like big meetings or big party events, but you're mostly going to be focusing on the people who are around you. You may not even know about people's opinions on a game other than online discourse.
Yeah.
So but with Star Citizen, that person might end up on an ISC, and they may become someone's favorite developer. So when they show up to CitizenCon and they get 3 people showing up and asking for their autograph because they love them on ISC and they like what they're doing, and let's discuss shaders and how
that's how it used to be back in the day too. That's how Chris Roberts got his name. He put his name on everything. Same with Carmack, Romero, what's his name? Taylor,
the guy from who ran Lionhead. The guy who famously Molyneux.
Chris Taylor, Peter Molyneux, Richard Gygax.
Yeah.
Did D&D, and then you had what's his name, Lord British,
who was also from famously
Origin.
Yeah, Origin. Famously, Lord British has been name dropped in multiple animes because Ultima Online was super popular in Japan in the 80s. So,
Sid Meier. God, what was it? What was Lord British's real name?
Richard Garriott.
Know it.
Richard Garriott.
Garriott. Richard Garriott. He did a lot of other MMOs recently too. Shroud of the Avatar.
Yeah.
I feel like the River guy is a good example. I feel like he gets a lot of motivation out of the community.
And some people don't want to be
the guy
famous,
who makes the
right.
Of course, but I feel like the guy who makes the rivers and the water shader is someone who does like it and does like the fact that we now all know him as the river guy or the guy who makes the water shader and the water
that one guy who was the Tonk guy, French man.
Yeah.
But I mean, like for instance, this is his first game. The guy who Hydro Homie, this is his first game he's ever made, which is always impressive. So I've met developers through Star Citizen that has opened me up to meeting other developers for other games through through social medias and through events and stuff like that. So I know the general feeling I've gotten from those folks is that you work on something in the dark, and when it comes out, you hope it's good, but you're never assured that it's going to be good. And it can be very frustrating to have that experience. So meeting people in person who like your game or like your content is entirely the content you've made for the game is so different. It can help you kind of make you go, this is what I'm doing this for. These are the people I'm making this game for. This is the art that I'm producing. So I can see the reason why, but I also know that it's just such a resource drain because basically CIG is doing nothing but focusing on CitizenCon from say July until until October. So like 4 months out of the year is basically just thrown out the door for they're thrown into the bin for any kind of content that needs to be made. So it's like,
personally, I just feel like Star Citizen wouldn't have been where it is nowadays without Sitcom. I think it's been because it started so early during the development cycle. I think it's been an integral part of the community building and such.
Now it's part of the culture of Star Citizen to expect CitizenCon.
Yeah. All right. Next question comes from Commander Alice Aurora, who asks, "Do you think they'll release a high sec system next, or just Nyx, as it's probably the closest one done?" We already know the progression because they said it's going to be Pyro, Nyx, Castra, and Terra. That's the order because they announced that with 1.0. Those are the 5 systems in that order. They're not going to go out of order unless, as Vertigo said, Chris Roberts does a line of coke and decides that he just really wants to get Terra done.
I mean, it could happen. Chris Roberts could have
Chris Roberts
a stroke, and he wakes up the next day after he survives his stroke and says, "We're doing Terra next."
Yeah,
and everybody's like, "But doesn't matter. We're doing Terra." Because he's the CEO, he could have that.
And it's one of those few systems that is connected to Pyro, so you could legitimately go from Pyro to Terra. So, all right, next question, because I think it was a pretty simple one. There's no you don't think that we're going to have any sort of alternate other than Nyx Castro's Terra, right? build?
I mean, the only ones that were kind of they showed swamps and stuff, and that kind of made me think of Oya, I believe the system
Yeah.
is called. But other than that, I really don't think they're gonna change the plan. I think Oya is probably after Terra somewhat close because it
Yeah.
makes sense. But
Yeah. Well, Terra also has swamps because it's got
Yeah,
all the
true.
biomes of humanity or of Earth. So I'd imagine the other one is there's a system that's connected to Castra called
Toe Hill?
Tohill, which has sort of a swampy biome with its floating gardens.
That has the
botanical-
floating plant islands
Yeah.
or whatever.
So, but I also know that there's a swamp in a swamp biome in one of the moons of Odin. So that may be where they developed it initially, was for Squadron. So
That might be the case.
all right, next question from Shimpastu, who asks, thoughts on Roger Godfrey leaving CIG? Does this mean server meshing is working and viable? So for those of you who don't know, Roger Godfrey, who was the head of the server meshing team, who'd been working on building server meshing for a long time, he left CIG as of this week. And he actually did a very long post about him leaving. Thanking all the people he thanked. He, fun fact, and Vertigo might like this because I know Vertigo and Darj both like this. He actually worked on Independence War 2. He actually was,
War 2, Edge of Chaos, baby. One of my favorite games.
I believe he did the physics for IW2. So it was funny because he mentioned it on Twitter, and I told Darj this, and Darj just fanboyed out. Be like, you worked on IW2? And he's like, you remember IW2? He's like, yes. I explained to him on Twitter, like at the time I was like, you don't realize how many people in Star Citizen are massive fans of Independence War 2.
Yeah.
So,
I found it kind of interesting. There was like a point in his post where he talks about how other people are going to take credit for his work or our work, and everybody. I read it. This is one of the things I read Reddit for. Was someone pointed out that he may not be talking about people inside CIG. He may be talking about people outside
of
in
CIG.
the greater community.
Yeah.
Where you have Microsoft or Amazon or Electronic Arts, they come along down the line and say, "Hey, server meshing, we invented it."
Yeah.
And like, nope, Star Citizen did it first.
Yep.
My team did it first.
I almost certainly that's the case. I think
Yeah.
a lot of
That was a really large tone shift for that. Like, if you deleted this one sentence, like this entire thing would be perfect for LinkedIn. But
Yeah.
for some reason, he decided to like cast shade on his own team or his own company he's leaving.
Yeah.
That seems really weird. But then someone on Reddit pointed out, like, no, he's talking about like other companies.
Yeah. And he's been in the company in the industry for a long time. Because when did IW2 come out?
2006, I want to say.
So yeah, so
I have
like,
to Google this real quick.
so if it was 2006, he's been in the industry for at least 15 years, if not close to 20, probably more than that. He's probably been
2001.
2001.
So about the time of Half-Life released.
Yeah.
Half-Life, 99.
And if he was building those systems, it means he'd been working on there for several years before then. So at least two.
Well, a lot of people that work for CIG, a lot of their high-level developers are veterans.
Yeah.
I know Tony Zervik worked on one of my other favorite games, which was
Crusader.
Crusader No Remorse.
Which is where,
And then,
fun
of
fact,
course-
which is the reason why Crusader is named Crusader.
Yeah.
That's actually
Oh,
traditional
and
meta reason, so.
what was his name? Aaron Roberts worked on another of my favorite games.
Starlancer?
No. Privateer 2, The Darkening.
Privateer the Darkening, right. He also
It
made
wasn't Wing
Starlancer.
Commander Privateer, it was just Privateer
Tier
The
2.
Darkening.
Yeah.
Privateer 2, The Darkening. And it had absolutely nothing to do with Wing Commander
yeah.
or Wing Commander Privateer. It was like they took two games and they mashed them together. They had this FMV game that they were going to cancel. And they had this like flight sim game that they were going to cancel. And they're like, hey, why don't we just mash these two games together and just like. And honestly, like if you want to experience like Privateer 2, The Darkening, just go watch like someone do like a let's play of it.
Oh God.
And just watch the cutscenes. The cutscenes themselves are fucking just bizarre.
It's infamously bad. And not like it's not bad as in like a bad game. It's bad as in like what
fascinating to watch.
Yeah.
It's like it's just bizarre, kind of like almost experimental levels of like sci-fi.
Yeah.
Like Lex. I don't even remember the
Lex. Yeah.
Sci-fi thing. Or Farscape, where they're just trying out far out weird shit. And like I think the game ends with you like stomping on the secondary brain that's attached to an umbilical cord that falls out of the ass of like the big bad like mobster boss who's trying to kill you the entire time. It's It's weird. I remember playing it as a kid. I'm just like, the fuck is happening?
Well, Aaron also created Starlancer, which is technically a follow-up to Freelancer.
No, Starlancer came out before Freelancer, if I remember correctly.
Freelancer? So, they're in the same universe. I know that. Like Freelancer is.
I have to list.
Yeah, I know they're connected, and I know Aaron did Starlancer and Chris did Freelancer. So
Starlancer was 2000. I think Freelancer was like 2005,
2002.
How did we end up here, guys?
Question answer. Freelancer is 20. Oh, the Freelancer. This is a This is Freelancer.
Microsoft.
99. No. Yeah. Game was initially announced for Chris Robertson 99. Many production schedule mishaps brought out by Digital Anvil by Microsoft. Was eventually released in 2003.
Okay, yeah. So it's Starlancer's prequel.
Slightly after. Yeah. So it was developed after Starlancer. It was probably like in the same universe, but I actually own both games.
Yeah. The question is like, because the problem is there's a lot of hullabaloo about Roger Godfrey leaving and that kind of stuff. Does it mean the server meshing is working viable? Yes. But I mean,
it means it's in the game now. Like it still needs polishing, but it's in there.
4.0 was proof that it works because I can tell you one thing: performance is insane.
Yeah.
On servers with hundreds of people, I am getting 30 FPS in servers and getting 40 to 70 FPS. I'm getting better performance consistently across the board than I've ever had in Star Citizen.
Yeah.
Granted, there's a lot of 30Ks or just weird bugs that are happening. But in servers that I've been on for hours and hours and hours, there's just no drip in quality at all. It is proof, but that's just 4.0.
And to talk about Godfrey's departure.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just get tired of working for the same guy.
That was my point, is that he's been in the industry for like 50 or like 30 years now. And even in his little statement, he was like, I want to work on my own projects and be with my family.
Yeah. And he said that his departure is like, I just want to go and do some other stuff. I've been doing this one thing for so long. And he's one of those guys that can basically command his own stuff. He's got pedigree. He's got a resume built up. He's got the knowledge base built up. He could just call somebody and say, hey, I'm available. You guys want to give me a job?
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we can totally use somebody with your experience. And he's one of those people that could just call around and find somebody, give him a job. He doesn't have to apply. He just knows people, right? He's been doing this for so long.
You can probably find us online. I don't know where the exact link is. Someone sent it to me. It's in our Discord as well. So, he's a fiction. He goes where he needed, but he's also a network engineer. And anybody who knows anything about if you want to learn one thing about any sort of like tech related things, is that anybody who deals with network engineering is a wizard. And I don't mean that as in like they're a wizard. No, they produce black magic. They do dark rituals to summon Cthulhu or the devil or whoever to be able to fix it. What they do is so in demand that they can pretty much ask for probably a small country in order to get things done with the right people.
I got the link here.
And the people who work on network engineering for video games are even rarer. So, like,
they get paid more at Google and stuff. So it makes sense that they
because they're so important to other big companies. They get paid absolutely insane amounts of money. So like there's a lot of draw for them. So he's not him being in Star Citizen in the first place means that this is a passion project. He wanted to be part of this whole system. And him leaving is more, he's not getting any trouble. He can do whatever he wants at that point. So scalability makes or breaks any modern software product. It's also important to remember that he was working for CIG before the acquisition of Turbulent, and with Benoit taking over more control over software, I'm sure it's also an issue of like Benoit wanting to, being in certain places. It could also be a situation where Benoit's now in charge and Godfrey knows Benoit enough to go, it's in good hands. I can leave. He can do what he wants to do, kind of thing. So, yeah. And
like I said, it's not unusual for people to leave these days. And, nobody lives in a career anymore. My father, like, just recently retired from Boeing. He'd been working there for about as long as I've been alive. and that's rare these days.
Yeah.
He basically graduated college, drove west from Minnesota. Basically, he graduated from college, went to a job fair at his college campus. Boeing was there. They offered him a job. He drove west without any other prospects other than Boeing. Showed up at Boeing's doorstep, got a job, and worked there until he retired. That's super rare
possible.
these days.
Yeah, that's impossible. Well, also in video games is notoriously a turnstile. If you talk to people, even at CIG, you'll find out that most of them who are veterans have worked at least 2, if not 5 companies.
Yeah.
So, because it's just you work on a project for 3 to 4 years, you finish that project, you get your pink slip, you leave, you go to another company, you work on a different product, and it's usually like as you're working on as your product is wrapping up, somebody else who worked at another company says, "Hey, I know your project's wrapping up. I could use your expertise on this," and they go, "Sure, we've worked together. I'll come and join you." You meet more people. It's a small incestuous community. Video game is.
Mechanics was like that.
Yeah.
When I was working turning a wrench, I go from one job to another, and you'd hear guys talking about how they worked with this one guy who was a service manager. Now he's a mechanic over here, but he worked with this guy. And people would actually hear about you before you actually went to work there. You're like, "Hey, did you hear about this one guy that did this one thing over at this other job?
Yeah.
It was pretty fucking funny." Like, "Oh, you've heard of my work?
Yeah.
That was you?" Yep, that was me.
It's incestuous in the sense that like
Everybody gets passed around
all the time.
Yeah, of course.
And so you think of this. I used to think of gaming as like each individual company is working on stuff, and people might work in the company for like 5 to 10 years, and they form their own company, and it's just an ever expanding. And then when I started following game development more closely, when I started getting into PC gaming, I realized pretty quickly it's like, no, these people are just like there are like 7 people who've made every MMO.
Yeah.
Several people who made ESO work for Star Citizen, who worked on ESOs on networking, work on Star Citizen. And there are people who work in Star Citizen who work on like ships, who used to work in like vehicle, but also like FPS combat or map design. Like they just people are very dynamic in what they can do, because in the industry like gaming, you have to be, because it's how you keep your job. So. Yeah, that's a long answer for that, but I think it's important because it's a big news segment that came in. Iris asks, if I'm understanding the mile marker achieved and laid out correctly, would it be fair for the player base to expect CIG to fix problems in gameplay? Or are we still in band-aids on gunshot wounds? Or why fix this? Just have to redo anything at anyway stage. Build and play, what do you think? Do you think we're in...
I think we should expect CIG to fix the problems and to be out of that phase, basically, or out of that stage. I'm not sure if CIG will do so. I hope they will. But for example, Bounty Hunter gameplay V2, I don't think they will work on it until they have a proper implementation of Reputation, and possibly together with Bounty Hunting, probably what do they call it? The new law system, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Law and security. It's in the release view as well for 1.0. So I think CIG is moving towards that, and I think we should expect them to work like that. Although I wouldn't surprise me if CIG will still decide to release some things that they then have to rework later again anyway, because they don't want to wait on certain features for certain content.
I think we're those ages that we're coming to a middle on that one. I think you're right in the sense that most of it is just going to be building new features from the ground up with other features that are finished. But I don't think we're quite there yet, because one of the big things is quantum. Mm-hmm. Like the new quantum system isn't in. I am still surprised by that.
Right.
Yeah, and well, not Star Sim.
Oh,
I mean, quantum travel, but Star Sim too. Travel. You know, Star Sim.
I'm still waiting for them to make stars actual physical objects instead of points of light.
Which I think they'll do when they do the full implementation of Vulkan, because I'm sure they're waiting for Vulkan
global illumination
and global illumination for them to actually make them physical objects so they can have, characteristics. So there's at least 5 or 6 different features that they need to actually produce before they can start going, okay, well, now we can start actually laid out mile markers exactly what's going on. I do think that they'll drill down heavily on a couple of things. Like once Maelstrom is out, they will drill down absolutely insane on like refining, mining, salvage and repair. I think that will get a lot of stuff when Maelstrom's in, because that's the sort of final feature in that sort of situation, or that sort of stepping stone. But I do think that we're still probably a ways away from them going, oh, well, why fix this because we're just going to replace this, or we're going to put a Band-Aid on it. I think we're heading in that direction, but there's still too many things that are missing from the game for them to just not continue some of those Band-Aid temporary measures. So,
no, I think we're moving away from that. I think CIG is definitely going to start knuckling down, getting stuff fixed up this next couple of years. Because now that, like I said earlier in the last segment, now that server meshing's in, CIG doesn't have any big disruptive technology that they have to rewrite the entire game to support coming forward. So they could just go ahead and just like fix up server meshing, but everything's kind of ready for server meshing. So now they can just kind of like start patching bugs out and getting towards release 1.0, start moving that way. And then it's going to be like, hey, we got this big feature coming up in the next patch. We're going to call this one the bounty hunting patch one of these days. That's kind of how I think it's going to go.
All right, so this next one is for you, Vertigo, specifically. The question, does the Valakar have a safe word like the Boreal Stalker?
I don't think the Valakar has ears. It can detect vibrations, but it doesn't hear like we do. So it would probably be more like stomping on the ground. It'd be more like a safe stomp or something.
A safe
I don't
stomp.
think I could replicate the Valkar's safe word with the English language. It would be incomprehensible. It'd be more like giving a baby an ultrasound. You wouldn't be able to understand it.
That is a very old joke. You're gonna have to go back and watch the old Captain's Tables to get the safe word joke.
I'm trying to remember what the safe word was for
we never gave a safe word for the Boreal Stalker. The joke was we were gonna run in with our fists and
fisting some stalkers.
Fisting some stalkers. And
What's your safe word?
What's your safe word? That's our battle cry as we run in to punch stalkers to death. Next question comes from Director Hawk, who asks, what is the new Planet Tech, or would the new Planet Tech come out next year? I think you've talked about this, Bob. You think
I could think it towards the end of next year. I mean...
Yeah. I'm saying the same thing. I think that they will... I mean, they've showed that sitcom this year, going off the last few sitcoms we've had. They tend to show things, first sitcom, and then the second sitcom, they finish it and show the final-ish product. So I think Nyx will, once again, towards the end of the year, be finished together with them showing the finished, like, most of the Genesis stuff, like Sarcotect, the dynamic weather, the GPU rendering for the terrain. So yeah, I do think that will be in at the end of the year.
All right. Next question comes from Northern Trooper, who asks, this is a long one. This week, I was traveling from New Babbage to Bloom in a single-seat ship. It took me 20 minutes until I had to AFK to deal with my kids. When I came back, I was kicked due to idle. I'm okay with this, but when I relogged back into the PU, I was put back at New Babbage, losing my progress. In 2025, do you think CIG will visit the rules of idle kick, and how will they respect players' time when they're willing to devote time for travel only to lose? That's a good question.
Very good question.
Because the question isn't when we're going to have persistence, is when. How is there going to be a way for us to prevent idle kicking?
I mean, there already is right now. You can just get a macro if you have a mouse or a keyboard that already does macros. You can download Auto Hotkey and you can just turn the lights on and off, or yeah. Well, I don't think Mobiglass works. You have to like open and close your Mobiglass every so often.
I think.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
I think there's a solution to it. The solution is pretty easy in my mind, which is you need to have some sort of either mode that you slip to in a vehicle, or if you have a toilet, sit on the toilet. Mm-hmm. If you're on the toilet, it will not kick you as long as you're on the toilet, or it'll extend your idle time by like 20 minutes or an hour.
But yeah, like that's like if CIG wants to have these really long travel times between any point of interest, like you're gonna have to have either interesting shit that happens every so often, or you're gonna have to leave players alone, and you're just gonna have like empty. like
Sorry.
Elite Dangerous, where you have like really long super cruise periods.
Yeah.
That nothing happens. You're just gonna have to leave players alone, or you're gonna have to interdict players constantly to give them something to do the way over, or you have to cut down the travel. This was a big complaint that we had with Stanton, was that it took a long time to actually get anywhere.
I mean, I think they're gonna, based off the Microtech demo that we talked about earlier on, I still think they want to do those taxi services, but they aren't anywhere near. I also just really hope that CAG will do that for players as well, because I could imagine at some point you just have a Genesis, people board the Genesis, sit down in the seat, you fly the Genesis Starliner somewhere else, systems away, the players can just log off in their seats.
Yeah.
And then you arrive there, you automatically unload all the players, they unload like NPCs. And then when they log back in, whenever they want to, they're in the station. There, they wake up in the hub. Systems like that will probably help out there. I also really hope that CIG at some point will just make it so that when you log off, you just log back into the same location.
Yeah.
To me, that makes more sense.
That would,
I
yeah.
don't know
If you get idle kicked, like you just log back into where your player
But that's
got kicked out.
that's a long-term solution, like the long-term thing. That's persistence when you like where the matter. But I don't think we're still probably several years away from true persistence, because they have to get a lot of the back-end services working out properly. Because can you imagine, like, they want to put everyone on a single regional shard? Think about just the sheer volume of people they'd have to track where the locations were.
I mean, again, we go back to what I talked about in the previous segment, where you have limits to what you can do with like MMOs. Like you have latency and bandwidth taken into consideration, and there's only so much black magic and voodoo you can do with like interpolation and extrapolation with the player movements. If you want to have what Chris Roberts wants with real time, interactions between players. Like if you want to have a real time firefight, you can't have someone from Seattle, Washington fight someone in like South Africa. It just won't be a good time, especially if they have dial up and I have like cable. Like if they're only dealing with 50, or maybe they have an IDSN line or a DSL line. Like God knows what that would be like. I don't know if they can get that to work. I don't think they can. So they're going to have to do region locking, I think, at some point, just for the sake of latency.
Yeah.
I know Dablus hates that idea where you're going to be able to play with people in Australia, and Dablus in Australia can be able to play with you in Austin. I don't think that's going to work out in the future. I think CIG is going to have to seriously like lock that stuff down to playable experience people. You may be able to like join a specific server, but when you join that server, you're going to log into a certain spot in that server.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be the characters basically. Like you just have a different character per region.
Yeah, like other MMOs have. Like you join a server in World of Warcraft, and your character is stuck on that server, but you can also change that character to different servers. CIG may do that, where you have to pay money to change to a different server, a new server cluster that's in a different region, or they may have a more fluid approach to region locking, where you're not allowed to join a region unless your ping is a certain way, but you don't notice that. I don't know how they're going to do it. They could do it very quietly at the back end, where if you don't have a good connection, they just don't let you go into Australia, America.
But then what if you have parties joining,
You may not be able to join. It may literally be like I talked about earlier with like Battlefield 4, where you can't load the map if you don't have the battle pass.
Right.
And if you don't have the good connection, CIG is not going to let you join the group.
Look, someone's saying location transform is already tracked. It's the offline 3 sets of rotation depending on the location, but log off you can put a spawn volume that aligns to the planet moon respawn the same location at the nearest zero cost. One line of E&E simply put when the ships when in the ships, etc. It becomes more of an issue. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Is like it's more of a, because it's not just the ship, it's also the player status, where they are, all of their stuff, all of that stuff. It's already tracked, but in order to track that exact same location in space, and what happens if that area of space is changed? What if a developer has added something and it's a player logged out in that area of space, and since they didn't come back in the next 2 weeks, the developers added an event that happens right there. It's just a player just wake up in the middle of the event, like there's a lot of issues there too. So
yeah, we had that with like Helldivers. We have that in Helldivers where people were fighting over Melvin Creek, which was a planet, and there's nothing at Melvin Creek anymore. The map has completely changed. So you still have people hovering, flying. They have the super destroyers or in orbit around Melville Creek that haven't logged in since that part of the map has been taken by super.
Yeah.
And so you have to like take account for that as well. If you have a player that kicked out, and this is beyond like player getting kicked for inactivity and then trying to rejoin. It's like what happens when you have a player disconnect and then you change something in a major update and that person was on a skyscraper that's no longer there.
Yeah.
What do you do?
Yeah.
When they log back in? Well, obviously the fix for that would be wherever the last landed
Right.
at. That's where they log back in. And that's what should happen when players get disconnected. They should just get rolled back to their previous spawn point. And Chris Rob, I think that early on in
how it
development they were
works.
talking about.
That's how it works now. But the problem, what he's saying is like he gets
Yeah, he
kicked
doesn't
in
want that.
idle. But he
But he kicks an idle and he rejoins immediately, right?
And then, yeah, or even he rejoins in like 20 minutes, and now suddenly he's back to where he was, so he's just lost all that 20 minutes of travel time. So
in reality, what should happen is like there's short range and there's long range here.
Yeah.
Like, what does a player do when you get disconnected and you don't play for like a month in the patch, right?
Yeah,
Obviously,
that makes sense. You go back to the station.
Back.
Yeah.
Yeah. But for someone who just rejoins, the grace period within the disconnect should allow you to just get back into your ship.
Yeah.
Like when you reconnect. And that's like, I think, a long-term goal. Another medium-term thing that CIG talked about a long time ago is that your ship gets taken over by the AI and you immediately try to navigate back to friendly space, wherever the closest friendly port is for you. And you land there, and that's where you log in next. I remember that being kicked around a little bit back in the day.
But I do think that just like an idle, some sort of state where you can put your character in as an idle that increases the idle
that doesn't
speed.
require third-party tools.
Yeah, it doesn't require third pros. And the question is like, oh well, that's that. Why would that be good? It's like because it's not just good for now; it's good for forever. Because you're going to always want to have idle kicking because you don't want people to like take up space when they're not actually there. And it would also allow for things like, what happens if you crash and you can't get back in? Well, then that character needs to eventually get kicked, even if it's registering as being there. So, get them kicked out. So you're always going to have idle kicking. So you're always going to have a situation where someone's going to have to go idle for a long time. If you're organizing for a raid in a game like WoW, one of the reasons why you see people jumping around like crazy morons is because gamer have brain that require movement. So parkouring around a map is easier than just waiting for nothing. But also because you got to do something. Otherwise, if you idle around too much, you're just going to get kicked. And so it doesn't help with setting things up if you're not actively doing something. So there's going to need some sort of situation. But I agree that we need some sort of solution for those short-term problems. All right, Jin asks, quote, everything significant is locked behind persistence and server meshing, unquote. His own famous quote that he's been saying for 6-7 years. Wasn't this year and the lack of patches necessary to get past that hurdle? The same was 2017 was inevitable to get Planet Tech in the game. Yes and no. The problem was that CIG locked 4.0 to server meshing and Pyro. If they hadn't said 4.0 is Pyro and server meshing, they could have dragged out the process so that they could have chopped it up into 6 different processes and dripped it out over time, over a longer period of time, which would meant that 4.0 wouldn't have been a boom or bust situation. And I think that is really what killed the momentum, was the fact that they had this anchor tied to around their neck of 4.0. And from what I can gather, generally speaking, having a gigantic patch release or some sort of gigantic activation with software is just asking for a problem when it comes to issues. More issues are going to pop up because it's far more complex to release this big patch than it is to release smaller ones. So, yeah, I think it's just needed for, it was needed for now, but I think in the future, them chopping up bits and pieces of patches and stringing them along in longer periods will do better for the game. But I don't know. What do y'all think?
I mean, it's just about server meshing being what everything's to do blocked behind server meshing.
Yeah, wasn't this year like basically the year they had to get server meshing done, and that's why we didn't get enough patches?
I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to say about that question. It's like,
Yeah.
What are we criticizing CIG by telling us that they had to have this tech in order to have any patches?
I just agree with Paul here. I think it's
It was my statement because I made a statement about how like this was a bad year for patch. It was just a bad year for like gameplay experience, and yeah, we needed the tech and that kind of stuff. But it's because CIG they dug their own grave. They
they
decided
could have handled it differently.
Yeah, they decided many years ago that 4.0 was going to be pyro and server meshing before they really understood what pyro and server meshing really meant to the game.
Yeah.
They always had an idea, but like there's a difference between it's an idea and then here's the code that we need to make. Here's the systems we need to build. Here are the planets we need to create. Here's all the characters we need to write script for, that kind of thing. So, anyways, next question comes from Hiroshi, who asks, Pyro seems fixated with eating poor quality food, rats, sea slugs, etc. Could there be a secret trade in fresh fruit smuggled from Stanton?
I don't know why there isn't. Like with casual
Elliot-
space flight, why wouldn't you just have people willing to pay for shit flown in from Stanton?
There is actually.
Yeah.
It's actually in game.
And fruit?
Not in fruit.
Okay.
Whammers.
But having
I'm not
a
even
local-
joking. You have to go to the contested zones, and there is a shop inside the contested zone
Oh God.
where you can
Or-
buy whammers.
whatever.
What?
It's the black
Like-
market.
Funny.
There wouldn't be a black market in Pyro. There would just be a market
Yeah, that's true. But it'd be a high
because
end
there's
market.
no laws to regulate what
Yeah.
you can and can't sell.
It's
It'd just be
true.
whatever. It would just you'd be able to buy whatever the fuck you want. It would be a libertarian paradise. It just
but-
whatever would be in stock. That's what you would be able to buy.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the
Pyro.
reasons why it's in the contested zones is because it's like only the baddest of the bad people are supposed to be able to get into those zones. So like, of course you're going to set up a shop. If you set up a shop with rare items of good food and drink from Stanton,
I
you
could
put
fill
it in
up
a place where all the
crate
people
full
who
of
have all
whammers
the
and
guns.
just fly to Ruin
Yeah.
Station and just set up a shop to sell whammers to people. For Christ's sakes, I do not like what CIG is doing with Pyro. Like I think the art style of Pyro is just kind of the worst.
Mhm.
I don't like the art. Like I like the exterior of stations and whatnot, the ruined stations and whatnot.
Yeah.
In Obituary, when I get inside, they have those dumb burn barrels,
Mhm.
and inside of a pressurized space station,
Yeah.
open flame. Do you understand how bad of an idea that is? With like junkies everywhere, like falling all over themselves, covered in bruises, with like rags
Cool,
hanging
cool.
off, soaked in like sweat and oil. Like
Mhm.
if they shove a junkie into one of those fucking burn barrels, the entire station goes up. That's fucking stupid.
I think it's supposed to be stupid. I think that's the whole
That's
point.
and it's congratulations. Like I hate
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. It's
You've
supposed
done it.
it's supposed to be like you're supposed to sit there and go, I don't feel safe here. Like any like this is one drugged out mistake away from blowing the whole station up. I don't know if I
Yeah,
should
that's
be
why I
here.
hate Pyro, because it's so fucking backwards. It doesn't make any goddamn sense.
Yeah.
Like the rich people, those who have actual money in Pyro should be controlling the stations, and all the drug addicts would be on the planet working for the people who control the space station.
I like it.
There was actually a sci-fi show that actually had this. I can't remember the name of it, where they had this space station that would actually go around Earth, and they'd actually launch bombs at the planet to like teach people who was in charge.
Who's in charge? Yeah.
And they actually, there was Elysium that had that
Yeah.
plot point, but they weren't launching nukes at the planet.
Yeah.
But there was a show that did that. It wasn't very well received.
I know there was the
Um,
100, which had the whole the space station, like the last versions of humanity was living on a space station, and
Mhm.
the world had been destroyed, and they sent their kids down, 100 kids down to see if they could reclaim the planet, that kind of thing. Who were all like criminals
Yeah.
and such.
This just sounds like Earth dynamics.
Yeah, it's just like I look at Pyro, and also I'm so fucking sick of the post-apocalypse. I mean, I'm playing
Yeah.
Stalker 2. I played Fallout back in the day.
Mhm.
Everybody wants the world to end. They always want to be the Wild West. And you go to Pyro, there's no law, everything's destroyed, everything's shit. And I didn't give Chris Roberts money to play Fallout again. I gave Chris Roberts money to play Wing Commander, the MMO. And when I look at Pyro, I see the wrong game. A game I don't want to play.
But remember, this is just Pyro, and the other 4 systems will not be like Pyro. So
Exactly. That's why I'm not excited for
get what you
Pyro.
mean,
Yeah.
but
I
I
I-
agree.
I see it as an artistic choice. It's obviously an
Yeah, it
artistic
is an
choice.
artistic choice. I don't like the art, and that's the wonderful thing about art.
Yeah.
Is when
You don't
art
have-
makes you
it's
feel
subjective.
something.
Yeah.
That feeling is valid.
Yeah.
Regardless of who you are, regardless of what other people tell you, when you look at a piece of art, your personal experiences
Is what
will
matters.
inform your feelings on that piece of art, and your feelings on that piece of art are valid as a result.
Yeah. I'm not trying to invalidate your art. I
I know. I'm just saying in general for anyone who's watching this.
Yeah.
But we're talking about fucking fruit being
Yeah.
black market stuff in Pyro. We got onto this.
But
Like the reason why they have indigenous food production in Pyro is so that when
It's
you
cheaper.
don't get the stuff you want, it's cheap and it's available. It's the same reason why the United States subsidizes corn and milk.
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have to rely on other people to feed your population.
Mhm.
Because what happens if the jump point gets locked down by a random like Xenothreat? Remember the Xenothreat invasion of Stanton?
Yeah.
You think Xenothreat was blockading that jump point to prevent shit from getting inside while they were using it?
Yeah.
So maybe Xenothreat decides to get a wild hair up their ass and they go pick a fight in Stanton, and suddenly you have a fucking gigantic war happening at the jump point. You're not getting any whammers through that.
Yeah. Well,
So you're going to be
Sometimes
eating
you
rats
jump
and
points-
maggots for a few months.
yeah, it's also important that we don't have the solar flares, so solar flares do knock out ships just randomly for
Yeah.
you know. The other thing that is important, I think, is just Pyro's not done. I don't think Pyro is going to be done for a while
Mhm.
because one of the things that was very clear in lore, and I know lore can change and all that kind of stuff, but it's always important to remember that lore doesn't dictate gameplay, but gameplay is dictates what lore is written. So like the reason why they wrote this lore isn't because Dave Haddock wanted to have cool lore. It's because some designer wanted to have this idea for and then they went to the writers and Dave had to write the story for that thing. And because it's a lot easier for Dave to write a story than for a designer to build the full system, that lore ends up being released well before that system is completed.
Yeah.
And sometimes the designs change between Dave writing the lore and the design coming out. So then they have to go back and change the lore. But usually that's why they're kind of vague. And one of the things they've been consistent on throughout most of this is that Ruin Station is the main hub. Obviously, that's changed a little bit because of how things work. But it's supposed to be where the Xenothreat live, and it's supposed to be a big place for lots of different, illegal activities. And right now, it has no markings that it's Xenothreat. It's not even described as Xenothreat. And I would 100% expect it to go over some sort of like its own sort of touch up to be more of a hero location. So the interior is probably less shit and more clean and more usable with more like kind of stylings of Xenothreat with Xenothreat like logos and stuff around there. So yeah, I can see them still doing work on it and still sort of massaging the art styles and other places to make them a little bit more better, So anyway, next question. I only got a handful. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 or 11 questions, and a couple of those, like I'll just answer this real quick. Someone says, why does Jake not work for? Why did Jake leave CIG? No one knows until Jake says why, if they want to say why. Until then,
If you're a close personal friend of Jake, you'll probably talk about it. But
Yeah.
as far as the broader community knows, Jake hasn't said anything. And if we do know, because Jake will let you know.
Yeah. So none of our business.
It's
Yeah.
Mind your business. That's a Nunya business.
Yeah.
Everybody has speculations. Opinions are like butts. Everybody has one. They all stink. Jake doesn't work there anymore.
Yep, that's it.
That's all you need to know right now. And like I said, if you're friends with Jake, he'll probably tell you. But if you're not friends with Jake, you just need to know he doesn't work there anymore.
Yep, they do not work there. Next question comes from Bigger Gap, who asks, odds of a Squadron 42 release announcing during Invictus 2025. What do you think, Bob?
Tiny, really small chance.
Okay.
Once again, I think GTA probably will play a role in it. If GTA has a solid release date, then maybe they will talk about it, but I don't think they will, to be honest. If GTA says it's delayed to 2026, fall 2026, then maybe they will say, okay, well, we pulled Squadron is going to release earlier. Maybe. But in any other scenario, I don't see them talking about it at all at Invictus.
Yeah, I could see them doing it only because the rumor mill about GTA is that they'll know if it releases in 2025 by March. That's their cutoff. Is that in March they'll know what the date is going to be. So, and I think CIG is just playing it by ear. That we may get more information at Invictus. That'd be a good place to release some information.
I don't think we're getting an announcement for Squadron at Invictus. Maybe we probably hear something at CitizenCon. My guess.
Yeah, if we have a CitizenCon, yeah.
If we're gonna hear anything from 2025,
I mean,
we're probably gonna see a little bit more of Squadron 42 at CitizenCon next year, but we're not gonna hear a release date.
Honestly, if we're gonna hear a release date for Squadron 42, my guess is Gamescom of next year, because Gamescom is a massive event. It is basically replaced E3 in terms of the biggest event. E3 was never really the biggest event. Tokyo Game Show was always bigger, and I think even Gamescom was always bigger. But Gamescom is huge, and CIG almost always has a presence there. So if they were going to do an announcement, it would be at the biggest European event in gaming for gaming in Europe. So, but that's not until August of 2025. So, and again, CIG would probably more likely to do it in a group of the fans. So, all right, last question. No, not last question. Next question is from Lock Austri, Kestrel 11, who asks, how long do you think it'll take for the Nyx and Castor systems to get into game? With only two planets each and Delamar in, it seems like it would be pretty fast. I'm not going to answer that because we've already answered that. It's ones we've specifically talked about.
I mean, we could just next year.
I think almost all of us believe Nyx for sure is next year, sometime next year. And I think none of us believe that Castor is going to be fully in next year. I am the outlier and say I think it's going to be in a preview channel next year. But
CIG is going to have to increase the cadence for planet for solar systems.
And it's going to have to
I think they will finish Planetech V5 first, so version 5 first.
Multiple solar systems per year, 2 or 3. But I'm not holding my breath on Nyx or Castor next year. Maybe at the end of the year, towards the last patch, December, we'll see Nyx. And then Castor will come out maybe mid 2026.
Yeah, I
don't know.
Castor releasing right before Invictus is a good call because it's Invictus.
Yeah,
it literally ties in with.
I accidentally said that, but that was a good guess for to go. It sounds about right.
All right, so Lock Austri, Kestrel 11 asks also, with Gemini in ArcCorp and Clark Defense Systems and Kruger in Sherman, will CIG try to make those places exclusive locations for high-end gear for those manufacturers or not? Anything is possible. I do think that the reason why they have those listed in lore where they are is because they do want to make those locations for like mission givers or high-end loot.
I think they will, especially with crafting. So like you have to or buy it from players or go to that specific location.
Do missions for them.
That specific
to buy the blueprints.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Same with Hurston stuff that's already only at Hurston or at Lorville, the attritions.
Yeah. And then we also know that for instance, there's supposedly a Xi'an consulate on Area 18. So that's been mentioned multiple times. So I could easily see them putting a Xi'an consulate in Area Team at one point so that they can have people doing missions for the Xi'an government there as part of a reputation gate for things.
They can buy the
Sulin. Yeah, exactly. Where you can buy the Sulin or the Raylan or whatever.
Attack, Raylan.
So maybe even have Aopoa or Gatak like field offices there.
Who knows?
Lock Austria asks, question, mining missions likely in 2025 or not? Maybe. I wouldn't say. I don't think.
I have no clue.
They already have the ability to do.
They do
cargo missions. So mining missions could easily just be like they already have all the systems in place to do it.
I think one of the reasons
they could do it, but
they actually had planned on doing it alongside the salvage missions, but they never did. I think the reason why is because you can sell salvage without refining it.
Yeah.
But you can't really sell ore without refining it. And so.
Yeah. It would make sense to have like consignment missions where you have to deliver a certain amount of ore to a refinery or a city or something.
I think once they do that for missions for travel, that's the next step in
The problem
with cargo
is
missions.
with I think Paul, you were talking about this. The problem is like you get a mixed bag.
Yeah.
Of ore. Like you go out and you want to collect some Terranite. You're going to get more than just Terranite in your mining saddles. So they probably want to do it like.
Well, they even said
that would kind of suck.
They said in ISC that they're changing how the distribution of resources is. So like you're going to always know that this specific node is going to be in this specific area based off of the morphology of the land and that kind of thing. Yeah. So it's no more of this like mixed bag of stuff. It's just going to be what you get. So
like, yeah, so like it's not going to be like cargo missions. Like I'm trying to think of how CIG would do mining missions without having the cargo, like having to get a cargo ship involved. Like you could just do it straight from like a mining ship, like a prospector.
I think
it's like you're always going to have a mixed stuff in with the prospector's bag. So it'll take like just I don't know how it would work, but you could do it. It could happen. It just requires CIG to desire. It's all numbers, right?
Yeah.
In the system, like, you just got to figure out how to get the math to work out.
Jin is saying, because this is true, I haven't played mining, so all I know is based off what they've talked about with like future plans. But apparently, the rocks do not have mixed commodities anymore. They're just like mono commodity rocks.
Really? You don't have like titanium and Terranite and Hephaestonite all in one rock?
No, apparently not.
Okay. Or I haven't been mining in a long time, so that's they could. I don't know. They could do it. You know what I know, Paul? They could do it with the gems.
They could.
Break at rock hand mining, rock DS.
Elliot has also talked about how the next step that he's already working on with cargo missions is we need X amount of processed food rather than you picking up the boxes and moving it. The next step of that mission is that we need X amount of products. Please come get it. And that was, as Dell was pointing out, that was the end of Save Stanton. That was the last mission of Save Stanton. We need this number of things. So if that's already in,
we need this much stuff. Bring it to us. Yeah. That's how consignment should work for like shipping. Back when I was a mechanic, that's how the trucking companies worked. It was, we need this much stuff delivered to us by this time. Right? How oil refineries do it. Like you have a port. You have a space for a ship to come up. You say, we want this much oil between these two dates, and we'll pay you this much money. If you miss the date, if you're too early, you make less money. If you're too late, you make a lot less money. But if you show up just on time, you make this much.
Okay, so chat's also saying that the planetary is still mixed rocks, but I know that the plan is to be mono rock in the future, because they said that in the live.
That's how it should work in Star Citizen, where you get a contract to deliver a certain amount of goods within a certain time frame. That's how Space Trucker worked. For those who missed that cute little indie game, which was just trucking in space.
It's good. Go get it. It's cheap.
You load up your freelancer, you fly over, you drop the stuff off, you get a paycheck.
And I think that's what will happen in the future with mining.
But it's going to be up to you to acquire the goods somehow, some way.
I think that's
legally or otherwise. But
I think that's how mining missions are going to work. Is we need X amount of Hephaestonite ore. Go get it.
That's what I think they're going to be.
Yeah,
you're going to have to like, and it's going to be, they're going to weigh your stuff and figure out how much Hephaestonite you have, and they're going to be like, okay, you got this much left. Okay, bring us this much more.
And I think once they get that part that mission working for cargo, then they'll do mining. It may be the same patch. So, the answer is I don't know, because it's such a wild west right now in terms of what is going to be the priorities for 2025 in terms of the granular details. But the chances are high that it will at least be in development. Mining missions will at least be in development next year, if not completed next year.
It just requires CIG
some changes.
Yeah, it just requires CIG to have the desire to implement, because it looks like everything's already in place. It just requires them to like focus,
put the time in,
turn their eyes to this feature and actually get it done. And we don't have that back.
Yeah,
but I can tell you it's probably not very likely, because they've never talked about mining missions.
They did,
to my knowledge, within the last year.
They did, but it was supposed to be coming the same time as salvage missions. And then they decided they weren't going to do it, and then they haven't said shit since.
Yeah,
it has been entirely dead since. So, there's a lot of other things that need to go in there, like material grades and like the mono nodes need to be put in, and all that sort of thing. So, we'll see. But I expect it will know more about those sorts of things when ISC comes back in January. So, all right, 89 Dig Dug. We only have 5 questions left. 89 Dig Dug asks, thoughts on Bounty Hunting V2? Will we see it in 2025? No.
Nope.
No.
I don't think so either. They really haven't been talking about it much.
It is such a massive feature that if they thought it was going to be in 2025, they would have talked about it at CitizenCon or in some ISC.
Yeah, once again, reputation first, and then they have to still work out the entire new law and security system together with the bounty hunting.
Reputation system, law and security system. They need scanning for being able to track people where they're going because you don't want to have the God markers anymore. They need to have the new restraint system, which they haven't showed off since CitizenCon 2 years ago. Disabling somebody or like knocking somebody out and then restraining them. Only just now, all of the cargo, all of the Hawk the Hawk just now got its replacement, so it doesn't have the seat anymore. It now has just like a sled for you to put a cryo pod in, like a prisoner pod in. And so we need things like the investigation missions, which are still missing, which they've been doing a ton of work on apparently. So you need the investigation missions, you need scanning, you need the health system.
I mean, you technically already. I've talked about this years ago. Like, you technically already have version 2, like at the cusp of it.
Yeah.
Where you can already knock people out. You already have stun damage in the game, where you can knock someone unconscious, and then you just need to be able to track through their corpse and stuff it into a freezer pod, and then you commoditize that freezer pod and you drop it off into an orifice at a bounty hunting location, and then you just get paid out from that. But the problem is, if you're doing live bounty hunting to somebody in a single seat fighter, you have to have some sort of can opener mechanism to get them out of the seat, right?
Can opener.
And you could do all of that, but that all sounds like temporary work, like a work around,
So there's as well to cut the ships open.
Yeah.
CIG wants more for bounty hunting version 2 other than just that. So it's not on their radar right now. I don't.
Yeah. So yeah, it's. I think bounty hunting V2 is going to be based off of what they've talked about. It's probably going to be a 2026, if not like a right before 1.0 sort of feature, because it is shaping up to be Star Citizen the game in micro. Kind of like how Endeavor is like, it literally covers every single thing. It's going to require, space flight, health systems, sensor systems, FPS gameplay, in its own restraint gameplay, probably even repair or like salvage as well as reputation systems. It's one of those things where if you look at it, it's so big in terms of all the different systems it touches on. So, all right. Iris asks, what would a lore and Qantas org collab look like?
It's actually a pretty good idea. I like the idea of it. So for context, the events we normally organize are tours that have dedicated crew. We have pilots that we train to fly low G forces, so you can walk around the entire tour. Bartender aboard, of course, or multiple depending on the size of the event. And me or other people telling about lore. We definitely need more lore knowers, of course, because the people who actually read all that stuff are rare. And I'm not even nowhere. And I'm nowhere near Paul's level, just to clarify. But it would be fun to do an event where we, sort of like our discovery tours, where we go down to like derelict outposts and search for the what are they called? The pieces
relics.
Of the
we call them artifacts, the pieces of the spicy choice seat, but also like medals and stuff like that. I don't know if you'd be able to handle the rabid of lore. If you want to fly us down there, we the joke is we put the AR in archaeology, because when we get down to within the level of a derelict outpost, we immediately just destroy everything within range of said outpost and then take what they have left over.
It would be interesting. It would also just be interesting to you sometimes do you still do those? The That you actually have a bar in the game.
I haven't done that in a while because I've been waiting for the game to get more mature, but I'll probably get back to it with 4.0 being a little bit better in terms of performance.
I mean, I'd love to do a pub crawl if we could actually get the bartenders.
Yeah, we used to do that as well. We used to do pub crawls, but now the bartenders just do not function. So hopefully with 4.0 they can start to work again. So
if you ever need player bartenders, we have quite a few.
There we go. All right. Next question comes from Apollonus01, who asks, will it be hard for CIG when base building comes in for them to put in an empty system, no POI, only mineable for us to decide what laws will be in the system, like how the towns of like towns in the Old West? This is a question that's been around for a while. Basically, can CIG just add a blank system, just randomly hit randomize, add a blank system, and then from there?
Yeah, I think they could do that. Null sec, essentially. Random wormhole space in EVE Online is basically like that.
I don't see them doing that, though, because this is a Chris Roberts game.
I can totally see them doing it. Having procedurally
so?
generated systems that just unlock past release at some point that are just connected to the grid that aren't on the map already. I can see that. Just hit randomize and then boom, null sec space.
But like 1.0?
It's the Wild West frontier. Whoever goes and claims it, we have a gigantic event where we have like the Vanduul trying to claim it, the Banduul trying to claim it, the Terravon trying to claim it, the UEEs trying to claim it as well. And there's just this war that happens over the system that has very resource rich. And the players have to help out one side or the other. Yeah,
but what you're just describing isn't a blank system. What you're describing is a narrative driven system with people trying to fight over an empty system, rather than what this is asking is like a no rules, no laws, pyro, but without NPCs. No NPCs,
without
just
the factions.
Without the factions. No factions, just players.
Yeah, I think Paul, maybe you're right. I don't think Chris Roberts would do that. Chris Roberts loves smelling his own farts.
Yes.
And they would definitely have to add lore.
Yes.
In there. They have to have NPCs in there. They can't just leave stuff up to the player base for fucking some reason.
Yeah. I understand the motive behind it, but I don't see it happening without the context of the universe that they've already written. But
heaven forbid the players actually do something like PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
Yeah.
Which was an Arma mod, by the way.
Yes.
For a mod. It was
Daisy mod.
It was Arma mod. Yeah, it was Daisy, which was a mod for Arma 2, and then PlayerUnknown's Battleground was a server setting for DayZ, which
Arma
then became
3.
its own game worth billions of dollars. Heaven forbid the players actually create something that Chris Roberts is more fun than what Chris Roberts is doing.
So I believe that this is not something that CIG will do, but I believe that 2026 we will see probably within 3 months of Squadron 42's release, we will see the first private servers of Star Citizen come online, not by CIG. I have believed for many years there is a lot of talented people in the Star Citizen community who already know how to read CIG's files. I believe that we're going to see a 5M or Red M situation where some group will get together and say, let's take the engine of Squadron 42, because we know you can import Star Citizen assets, and we'll rip out all of the assets for Squadron and import all of the assets for Star Citizen, and then hack our own version of the backend services, and then have a roleplay server that is controlled by us. It's going to happen at some point, and I do think that's going to probably be the whether CIG wants it or not, that's going to be the simplest solution, is taking a single player game that already uses the same assets and then just importing the assets from the multiplayer game. So I don't think, to answer the question, I don't think CIG is going to do it officially, but I do think it'll eventually happen, but it'll be happening on private servers.
I do also hope that they will sort of do it in a small scale with some planets in certain unclaimed systems.
Yes.
So like Nick's planets, you have like this ice giant, I think the third one.
Mm-hmm.
I really hope they just kind of leave it empty so players can just kind of do their thing there. But other than that, I don't think CIG will do so. Not system scale, basically.
Yeah. I think that we might see something like that in the distant future, where there is no lore. It's discovered by players and the players involved with it. But I don't think CIG will ever not involve the NPC factions in something like that. So
it'd be cool though if CIG just had a blank system with a bunch of resources and the players can just go in there and do whatever. But it would essentially literally just be Rust. Yeah. And Chris Roberts can't let us do that. He can't let us just enjoy our time in Star
Can you
Citizen.
imagine?
There has to be
could you imagine the community's reaction?
NPCs.
Could you imagine the community's reaction if there was a Rust, like basically a system that was Rust? They're already complaining.
Imagine Pyro, but with no NPCs, no bases already built there, and you just go in there and you just build your own shit.
They're already complaining. They're already complaining about PvP destroying the game. Can you imagine? They would lose their fucking mind. Like players would like eat themselves alive, knowing that there was a system that they could go to that would be built entirely for
player run.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know how they're going to work that. Like imagine, like even with Pyro right now, if you have a large enough org, you could just lock down the entire system, or at least lock down all the points of interest around one planet.
Well, it depends. The planets are going to also be those point of interest are going to be owned by the NPCs, and so that's the hostility system.
You're eventually going to have this was brought up. I saw this on the Spectrum.
Yeah.
Not long ago, somebody was like complaining about how they went down to a planetary location and they were dropping off some stuff, and the location was just full of corpses.
Yeah. And
I'm just like, that's kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And everybody was talking down to me like I was the idiot, but I'm like, this is a Chris Roberts game. Why would you have civilians like Citizen for Posterity in Pyro without having like them strapping guns to everything, right?
Yeah.
Because Pyro is a lawless system. Like at any point in time, Xenothreat shows up and kills you just because you're there and takes your shit. Like this is the worst part of the Wild West. So like I don't like that. That's another reason why I don't like Pyro and the lore of Pyro is this like every faction that exists in Pyro would have guns coming out the demon hole just to like prevent you from like killing their bases off. But in order for CIG to make it so players don't kill off everything, they have to infinitely spawn NPCs, which means you're going to have, if you have fully persistent corpses, you're literally going to have corpses piled up in the middle of a base, in the middle of a grounding location, because you're just going to have to keep spawning guys. Or you're just going to have to let the base get wiped out. Just have like, when players finally leave, you'll let people move back in when the players are done killing. But you're also going to have infinite, because you got a full loot game, right? So you'll have infinite items you can take off the NPCs if they do fight back. So you can just keep killing them and then tractor beaming their corpses back into a ship and stripping their armor and just throwing it into the cargo bay. And now you're just fucking looted up, baby. Like, I don't know how CIG is going to solve this problem. Like, it's kind of immersion breaking in my opinion.
Go ahead.
Just make passenger transport gameplay and make it possible for Qantas to sell organs, and problems is
organ trade.
So I can tell you the simplest solution, which is there is a certain number of people at any outpost, and once that number is gone, then that outpost will take a while for it to regen. So you're gonna have a while.
And we had that back in the day, back in like EverQuest, where you'd have like timers for like spawns.
Yeah, and then
mobs,
and then these groups can also call for backup. So then you're going to have that infinite wave will become GTA style, where like you commit a crime and then you see how long you can survive by killing cops, and eventually the military shows up. They're gonna want to have the Concords thing, not
you're gonna have to. That's kind of like the way I was gonna go. Eventually, you're gonna have Citizens for Posterity. We'll eventually have to have Concord backing it up. Like you're gonna have to have an Idris show up to shut down whatever camping is happening around your outpost. So,
I think the one thing that's really missing from Pyro that's very, very clear is reputation. Because the reputation hostility, you should be able to get good reputation with a group, and that group should be able to back you up everywhere you go. And if you're in an area, they should be fine. But if you don't know them, they don't know you, and in an area, they should be hostile to you, or at least aggressive to you. Maybe lock down certain areas. And that's something CIG said they wanted to do with Pyro, but it's just not in 4.0. So
I mean, it partially is. I'm neutral with Rough and Ready, but they keep shooting me in the stations.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm neutral with the headhunters, but every time I try to land at their bases, they keep shooting at me. They're
because you're neutral.
Yeah,
you need to be positive with them. So it is kind of an ish.
Yeah, but I mean, like you also need to have backup and to arrive.
Yeah,
and
that isn't, of course.
So. Natty Bear, so we have two more questions. Gin and Tonic asks, with transient jump points coming in game, what does that mean for Oratani? I think.
I like this question.
So for those of you who don't know, Oratani is a famous jump point that collapsed.
Right.
So it was, they sent in a small terraforming team. They'd been working there for like a year or so. And there's a lot of rumors because they were doing this experimental way of terraforming where everyone and their families moved with them to the stations that were the kind of staging areas for terraforming, so that those families would then get pieces of land from the terraforming project. You basically got paid in a land for working with the terraforming system. So there was like rumors of like food shortages and riots and people being forced to work, and because it turns out that one of the planets that they had was at Waterworld, which doesn't have a lot of land, and a lot of people who showed up were like, "Oh, I wanted land, not a floating, platform in the middle of the ocean." So there was some conflict there. And so after that conflict happened, a bunch of people, like the company who was creating who was doing the terraforming, invited like the head of terraforming for the UNE and a bunch of other people to come with them to go inspect everything. And after they made it through the jump point collapsed. So then with no way of getting through. But with transient jump points, the question is, could we possibly find a transient jump point in Oratani from the Farron system to Oratani? And
any other system that's
or any other, it may be another transient jump point from one. But I think the way the transient jump points are going to work is they're going to be all the same. You can think the way they describe it is like a river, where you have a river and then tributaries that branch off of it. Those tributaries almost always are going to go the same direction that river is going. They're not going to suddenly double back and go somewhere else, and they all have to be from that original river. So I don't think the transients are going to be like a random jump point from Nyx to Terra. I don't think it's going to happen. But I do think that you'll have a jump point that goes from Sainton to Pyro, but it spawns in like Yella. So completely another location. And then it comes out in like Pyro 2. So you're suddenly like this temporary jump point that just cuts the shortcut, the huge shortcut down, time down dramatically. So, but I do think that's probably what they'll do. I think that's how they'll probably bring Oratani into the game, is temporary jump points, because that's a neat little storytelling. So,
as you said, the gameplay drives the lore, so it doesn't really make sense to have it in the lore at all if it's just there as this backstory thing for the few hundreds of people who read these articles.
Oh, it was mentioned there was going to have gameplay purposes. The reason why it existed was for gameplay. There is some plan they have with gameplay with Oratani. So, all right. Last question is from Maddie Bear, who asks, Are the plans for the Mobiglass still allow players to create apps for it?
I don't think I've heard anything about that in a long time.
I don't remember if they ever said they're going to do player-made map apps for Mobiglass. I do think they were going to do an application. This is a blast from the past for those of you who don't know. CIG at one point was going to create a mobile app for Star Citizen. It was going to be a mobile companion app. We have not heard about it in 10 years.
Didn't they at SitCon kind of touch upon? Wasn't there someone who touched upon it because of like they want to integrate the in-game chat into Spectrum?
Yeah,
and then maybe a mobile app at some point. I don't remember.
I think they mentioned something like that. But I don't know if we'll ever see player-made apps connected to Mobiglass. I'd love to see it because players, as Vertigo pointed out with PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, players are often the most ingenious, crazy people you can have. So right now, Star Citizen already has third-party apps which do a better job than CIG does at a lot of things, like DPS calculation, where you can buy certain ships, the best routes for trade. Like that's going to happen no matter what. So
I made my own spreadsheet to figure out how to haul multiple trade goods with a certain amount of money, because I would be trading like out of my C2, and I'm at an outpost, and I want to fill up on like Agricium, but I only want to spend this much money. What would be the most efficient way to fill my cargo hold full of like 2 or 3 goods? And I made a spreadsheet to plug in some numbers and do that stuff with. And CIG doesn't support that sort of thing in their game. Sometimes you got to make your own tools.
I also really hope they at some point you have the people like Zark Media who make like the news episodes and stuff. And HubNet, I guess. All of that like machinima content. It would be great if they do somehow integrate it into the game at some point.
I'd love for
and a
Zark
weather app
stuff.
and stuff. But
I'd love to see. I'd love to see my radar be
yeah, my radar,
implemented.
exactly.
I'd love to see commercials, the scooters commercials for Brio's Breakyard. You know, his
commercials maybe.
or maybe some more commercials. I think there's definitely going to be some sort of filter for it, but I'd love to see those sorts of things being added in there though. So
Yeah, even for the org logos and stuff, they wanted to add the org panes and org logos, right?
Mm-hmm.
How there'll have to be some sort of moderation there, because otherwise, yeah.
Oh, Scooter's in Pyro now. Okay, he's no longer in Damer. That's sad. That makes sense though. Scooter has better opportunities in Pyro. It's more of his style. AI can moderate logos. Yes, but they'd have to build their own AI system specifically. Their own CIG.
You shouldn't risk it.
CIG is also I've talked with CIG about using AI, and they've said in the past, we're not against using AI, but if we're going to do anything with AI, we'd have to build it ourselves. So, those systems exist, but I don't think CIG would buy an off the market system. I think they're gonna want to do it themselves.
Yeah.
They just hired an AI guy. The AI guy is they were working with machine learning AI for the generation stuff for Planet Tech at one point. That was one of the things they were talking about.
Yeah.
So they could do it with AI. I think it's probably more likely they're just going to hire somebody who's going to be like a moderator whose job is to look at all of the submissions and say, hey, is this violating copyright or not? And just kind of giving it approval. Because even with an AI, you're going to want to have somebody there to just kind of get that final little.
Remember Operation Pitchfork, Paul?
Yep. How the logo was stolen by a racist xenophobe like group.
It was actually the opposite way. Like it just happened that Operation Pitchfork's badge was very similar to a white supremacist. And they decided, the Operation Pitchfork people decided, once it came to light, they decided, we need to change that.
Yeah.
And you're going to have stuff like that constantly with spitted stuff if you don't have sort of moderation. And then, of course, you got Game Informer writing articles about how you're secretly supporting and harboring racists and white supremacists and shit like that. And it's just like, bro, we're Discord. We let anybody join. We don't ask them to fill out a survey about their political opinions or how odious of a person they are. You download the app, you create an account, and you just do your own shit. We just let people. When we get reports, we'll act on them. But if nobody reports the Discord, we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
I mean, I just. Sorry, with someone says in chat to look at these 70,000 logos. I feel like they would make something like a minimum member requirement, probably. You need 50 members.
Payment.
Yeah.
$5, $10, $20. Yeah. If you want to create an org, I think was it War Thunder did that? They required me to pay $20 to start an org in War Thunder.
Yeah.
I can see CIG doing that. Either you subscribe or you pay a flat amount.
Yeah. Not that you having an org will probably be like, there'll probably be like a free org you can use, but if you're going to be at a certain size, you need to pay. Or if you want to have access to certain features that orgs have, you have to pay, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, like the logos and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. In game, the ship's costing $15K. People easily pay $20 for the 3-person org logo. So sure, that sort of thing. I think they'll definitely be, but I don't think we're looking at $20. I think we're looking at like $500. They're gonna have something that would justify either them building an AI to help them do it, or somebody who's looking at it, or both. So,
well, we're gonna get game masters.
Yes.
Or admins, and
basically every MMO has a game master somewhere. So
yeah. To help if you get stuck, they'll teleport you to safety, or if you have like a problem with someone ripping you off in game, you can call up a GM.
Yeah. I don't think we're gonna get Arcage levels of game mastery though. So. For those who don't remember, Arcage, if you messed up, you could get, if there was an argument between players, you can take them to court.
No. There was going to be sort of in-game arbitration guild. That was a stretch goal in Star Citizen.
I forgot about that.
So maybe we will have the court system.
I mean, there's even a group of players who are already like the Stanton Police Department or
Yes.
something trying to do that at the moment.
UE
So
security, I've seen them.
yeah, those two.
I agree, both because I know Knight Rider personally, but also because I think it would be funny. Make Knight Rider the head of the arbitration guild.
Oh, for fuck's sake! Like,
make deleted
it's
by
one thing.
make
You know how
deleted by
easy
Knight
it is
Rider
to get banned from
CIG.
Spectrum.
Yeah,
Like,
make deleted by Knight Rider CIG an in-game thing.
Just the chat messages just
Yes.
changed to deleted by Knight Rider. Oh, did you guys during Sitcom? One more thing, during Sitcom, did you see the entire chat spammed deleted by Knight Rider CIG at some point?
Yes,
And then they didn't allow it anymore.
That's going to be the deleted by Knight Rider is going to be the new in-game the new this is a tangent of all tangents because we're finishing it up, but I personally believe that there should be crimes in the game that if you commit that you could be sentenced to death, like full on recreate your character, not like real life. I'm talking about in game. Fuck, dude. Like no.
Jesus Christ, Paul. Like that's worse than Ready Player One.
Yeah. No.
Welcome to Texas.
Yeah.
It's like the Matrix. It's literally the Matrix. If you die in here, you die in real life.
No, I'm not like what was it? Sword Art Onlining this thing. No.
Yeah.
But I mean,
where
like,
your character just gets deleted if you create a crime bad enough. For some people, it's not going to matter that much, but
you get a cut scene. You get a where somebody reads off your crimes and like in the total of your crimes, and you have to create a new character. Like,
I'm just imagining your character getting like the last meal, and you get walked down with a priest behind you saying your last words, your prayer, Lord's Prayer, and they strap you into like the lethal injection chair, and they put the needles on your arm. Paul, that's pretty fucking hardcore. I don't think we're all ready for that as gamers.
Even funnier, they just launch you towards the Van Duel.
Yeah, they just like, throw you out an airlock.
They give you a Hunchback 2C and point you towards the Vandal. For those who don't know, that Paul explained the prison mechs that the clans use.
The clans use that where free if you get caught, they give you a you just pretty much said it like it's usually it's bondsman.
Yeah.
Like when you get captured by the clans, you can become a bondsman. And means you're a pilot, you can operate mechs, but they
No. If you're a clan member and you dishonor the clan really badly or something, like you cowardness or betrayal or something, they literally weld you into a mech and they give you just enough ammunition for a single fight, and they just say go forward and die.
Yeah, no,
don't come back. Just you can regain your honor in death.
Yeah,
that's what that joke is.
Shloma, too old for glory. Solama. Okay, yeah. Desgra, yeah. The priest is Paul. Listen,
force feed them Pico plushies.
I just think that sort of idea is unique because it would be an interesting like consequence for people. Some people would try to see the list of charges against them as long as possible before they do it.
It's not a list of charges; it's a high score. Okay, come on.
That's what I mean. But it would also like have a accelerated lifespan for people who want to play Outlaws, because like if you get caught and you've done enough bad things, you don't get a IVS score that slowly goes down. You get your pattern ripped out of the system and you just get ended. You know, it's as hardcore as that sounds. I think it would be a cool system for like making the easy gameplay a little harder, you know, the stuff that people want to gravitate to naturally, which is
PK, PvP, just running around, just being a terrorist.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm assuming that we're eventually going to get lore on like the UE being able to like rip people's patterns out of the respawn system.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're going to find some way to jam it so you can't re-imprint yourself or some shit like that. Yeah.
So, because I'm also a big fan of the idea of having suicide squads where, like you have criminals who are given, not less than lethal weapons and told, go clear out this bunker. And if you survive, we'll give you a reduced sentence. You know, give
something like that.
Give those
We'll allow you
players,
to rebind your spawn point.
yeah, or something.
If you manage to achieve this goal,
you get out early. You know, to do this mission, it's incredibly dangerous, but you'll get out early, and so players will do it because they're it's gameplay that they want to do. Like PvP players be like, yeah, let's do it. You know, so. I don't. What is solo hama? Most people have referenced this. I do not get this reference. Slow hama?
No idea.
No, it's most people referencing it, so it's probably some sort of sci-fi reference that I'm gonna feel bad for not getting. But, anyways, it's old clanners that are too old for battle. Oh, it's a BattleTech reference. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, it takes me to Sarna.net.
Yeah.
More BattleTech lore. Paul, when are you gonna do some BattleTech lore?
Next January. In January. Okay. Yeah, it's coming. I gotta finish up what I'm doing for Star Citizen first. But with that, I'm actually gonna go wrap this up because we've been streaming for an hour and a half. Well, more than that. We've been streaming for 3.5 hours, but it's about time. Thank you to HC Vertigo and to Build and Play for coming on. Wonderful having y'all talking with us. If you enjoyed this, again, this is our first Captain's Table After Dark on the new channel, youtube.com/at the Captain's Table Podcast. Please do hit that follow button if you haven't already done so on Twitch. Subscribe to us on YouTube there, and hit the like button if you enjoyed this. And if you want to watch us live, twitch.tv/TheAstroPub, youtube.com/TheAstroPub live. We'd love to have you come down and join these wonderful folks here in chat and ask your own questions and get off track and talk about Paul getting taken out of context with statements, because that statement's going to get clipped. Happy holidays for those of you who do celebrate, and I will thank you for watching, and like I always say, hope to see you someday in the black.
Play safe.